What is up, everybody? Welcome to Sports Clichés. I'm Jay, that's Craig, and these are two guys that scored as many touchdowns as the Colts and Broncos last night. Hope you all ready.
You were so close to what I had.
Hope you all are ready for a fun week 5. Let's get right into it. It was entertaining in a sick way, right? Like, I've never seen such incapable offenses, and I've seen some pretty bad games. I've watched some. I've seen some pretty bad Niners teams. That was crazy. I didn't think it could be that bad, but it was.
Shout out to Brandon McManus and Chase McLaughlin,
Hey.
who are both really good.
Solid fantasy picks this week, obviously. I mean,
Fucking hell,
yeah.
that was that was some of the worst quarterback play I have ever seen. And like,
Yeah.
so you see the stat lines, and they're almost flattering.
Absolutely. It was like everybody's going to look at that game. If they do look at that game, people are going to look at that game last night, and I think the one thing that they're going to take away from it is like, it's going to be the Russell misses, right? There was the pick, the really like bad pick he threw like from the 15 or so on a post route that was just completely eaten up. And then obviously there's the one right there at the end, the 4th down. But my God, did Matt Ryan throw some of the worst interceptions? I'm like, was this an upgrade over Carson Wentz? Because I think Carson Wentz doesn't make a couple of those really... There's a couple egregious ones from Matt Ryan last night. He looked out of sorts. He looked pissed off, obviously. He was completely frustrated. And somehow that team won the game. Isn't that fucking amazing?
So I will say about the Carson Wentz thing, I did watch his game versus the Cowboys. I still think Matt Ryan's a bit of an upgrade. Behind that, like, that Colts offensive line went from one of the best in the league last year to just couldn't block anything. He's got no time back there. I'm not putting it all on the line, obviously. Matt Ryan's been bad. But...
Yeah.
Jesus, he's got no time, and we're seeing it in their run game has been...
Well, yeah, and that was rough, too.
Woeful.
You weren't going in there with JT already. Naheem Hines takes a brutal one on a catch, I believe, right? And that takes him out. So you're down to Deion Jackson and Philip Lindsay, which is pretty interesting given Lindsay's background as far as, you know, obviously coming from the Broncos. And honestly, in you know, essentially what ends up being, you know, 3rd, 4th backs on your roster, not terrible days for those guys on the ground as far as you're just purely looking at those averages.
Yeah, Deion's comes from a lot from the one run.
Exactly.
What was it, the overtime run where
Always
he went
gonna skew it
20-25 or something like that?
But you're still probably in like a 3-yard area. Not super great running by any means, but you're kind of there on the border of all right. You're on the border of all right. Obviously, you gotta like what you're seeing out of Alec Pierce. He seems to be catching the stuff that's coming away, and a lot had to come his way last night. But yeah, absolutely. That line, it's a little beat up for sure, a little dinged up, and they have not responded well. But credit to the defenses, obviously, as well. I think we kind of had a good feeling about... I think both these defenses. I think Colts have been dinged up, but, I mean, they do bring some good names, obviously. You got your Gilmores, you got your Buckners, Ngaku's, plenty of guys, and guys coming back from injury, too, so hopefully that kind of tread continues for them. Denver as well with a great defense. You could obviously bring up your Chubbs and that sort of thing. But yeah, man, that was rough. And obviously, I think everybody's going to be at the end looking at at Wilson, and for a lot of good reason, because you paid a lot of money for this guy. As much money and shit was in hands with, the bad transactions with Wentz, and who knows how this Matt Ryan season is going to go for the Colts. This Broncos deal is looking bad right now. 4 games in, 5 games in, it's looking like a really rough deal for the Broncos, given how much they gave up and how much they're
Yeah. I don't even think the money bothers you as much as the assets you gave up.
First rounders, multiple years, right?
Yeah.
Into the second too, yeah.
Their next 2 first and second rounders. Like, they're not going to have a draft pick in the first 2 rounds for the next 2 years because of it.
That right there is kind of it's a lot of capital. Now, given the situation, this is a 2-3 team, those are going to be potentially really valuable picks coming up if this season keeps going this way for Denver.
Denver hasn't played a division. They played 1 divisional game against the Raiders. They still got to play the Chargers twice, the Chiefs twice. This season could get ugly.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you look at some of the games on their schedule that you thought were really winnable early in the season. Like, the Jaguars look like a competent team now. This team against that Panthers defense could be rough. I don't know, man. This season could get ugly.
Yeah.
We're going from, early in the season when it looked like they were struggling. Okay, you're going to have to battle it a little bit. But, you get to 9-8, 10-6, or 10-7. God, if they get 6-11 out of this season, it might be a good year for them, given the way they're playing. It's bad.
Yeah. I wonder where they are going to have the because right now they are in a place where their only game in which they scored points was that last one, right? And everything else has been barely over double digits, if that. It's just not sustainable. It's just not sustainable for a team. You can't be putting up that few points, and it's I think the only drive in which I've watched them play, and the only drive in which they look good, was that one right at the end of the Niners game. And Wilson started doing Wilson things. He was getting outside the pocket. He was, dodging, what would be, for sure sacks, that sort of thing. Shovel passes and shit like that. I know we joked and we made fun of Hackett and his coaching and that sort of thing, but some you can't put on him. And when you're missing wide open slant routes to win you the game at the very end right there, you can't put that on Hackett. He drew it up actually kind of nice. It was a wide open play. Receiver did a great job.
2 things I can't put on Hackett. 1, run the ball.
True.
And maybe more importantly on number 2, why are we so adverse to ties? This is a Broncos team that in that game was 2-2. 2-2-1, you're still very much in control of your own destiny. And that tie that you get out of that could end up being huge down the stretch. 2-3 is a lot bigger of a hole to crawl out of than 2-1.
Yeah. And I would
field goal, take the tie.
I would say that it's kind of funny. It's just an exact affront to, or the opposite decision, and kind of speaking to the decision that was made in Week 1, right, against Seahawks. And that you decided, instead of letting Russ get you a 4th down, and everybody's expectation is Russ is going to get you that, you kick it. You kick a 60-yarder. Guy barely misses. Literally, if you add 5 yards, I think he makes that kick because it just bends over at the end of it.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. He's gets buried for that decision. Time comes around again. 4th down. Now it's incredibly short. Obviously, a field goal if you kick it. It's a 1 yard instead of a 4th and 6. And in Hackett's, it's got to pop up in Hackett's mind. I got roasted for not letting Wilson do it. Made a decision to go for it, but it's just like obviously from what we've seen this season, we have such a different perception of what Russell Wilson could do, and I think you go to game one, that the same scenario that they had last night. If that happened week one, and we still have this perception of Russell Wilson being one of those really top echelon quarterbacks, right? Absolutely, you're going for it, 4th and 1 right there, and you're not even necessarily so much minding that he's throwing it either. It's almost like the again an affront to the Patriots. The Patriots Seahawks Super Bowl, right? Oh, you don't think I can make this throw? There we go. It's just like a lot of funny little scenarios within like a season and within the character or the player that Russell Wilson is. And yeah, I mean, that's a haunting one. 12-9, you lose that game. A tie would have hurt. Tie would have been funny as hell because Colts would have had 2 ties. They would have been 1-2-2 on the year.
What 1-2-2 would have been a hell of a record to see in the NFL.
That would have been absurd. But Colts got to figure out themselves, but they got to get healthy. Basically, they got to get healthy and they got to get that O line right. Right, that's pretty much it for them.
That offensive line's got to get right. I don't know. I look back on that game for the Broncos, and I see 12-9, 2 minutes left on the clock. Defense hasn't allowed much of anything, really, all game. There's no way the Colts are driving on you in 2 minutes. Take the points and get out of there with your lives, man. Mm. Because, again, you look at the schedule ahead, and I have trouble seeing where they together enough wins to be a competitive team. It doesn't seem to add up. They're in prime time again next week.
That's crazy. They really are. I didn't realize that. They've been in prime
Monday
time.
Nighter against the Chargers next week. You look at it. Okay, can they beat the Jets? Sure. Can they lose to the Jets? Absolutely.
Oh God, yes.
But could they beat the Jets? Sure. The Jaguars are going to be a tough test. I don't know. The Titans are not great, but neither are you. Probably lose to the Raiders again. Panthers defense, and then you got Ravens, Chiefs. You got the Chiefs twice in there. The Chargers again. The Rams. Like, where are you scrapping together enough wins to be competitive in there? Right? Like, I don't see it. I don't know. I think our boy Nate Hackett could have a short stay as a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah, real potential there, obviously. Yeah, and not many coaches are given too long. It could be one and done. It'd be crazy, but it could be. I mean,
I don't think it'd be crazy. I'd be shocked if it's not at this point. He's done nothing really right.
We will see. Let's get on some games from last weekend. We covered that Thursday night game. So let's go on to over in London. We had a real early morning game. I caught the very end of this, luckily, and it was a good game to catch the very end of. Minnesota Vikings going into New Orleans, basically, as a designated away team going into New Orleans as the home team, is able to eke it out 28-25. This game almost had the makings of one of the more awesome late kicks, and instead we get one of the more awesome doinks. We get the classic double doink right at the end of the game.
Double doink.
And Will Lutz almost pulls it off after having already kicked a 60-yarder with 2 minutes left.
Yeah,
has to line it up again.
One, and he had it and doinked.
Yeah, if that was a 60, it goes in, right? Because it's bending right at the end. He gets that. It maybe catches the inside, but it goes through.
Yeah, he gets the friendly roll at 60, and at 61, it doinks out. That's a tough one. That's one that you look at the kicker, though, and you go, hey, buddy, that's a great kick.
Yeah.
my idea that Kirk Cousins might get superpowers from playing so early in the morning that it's so far away from prime time, not quite. He was fine.
Yeah.
Um, I was honestly ready for Kirk Cousins to go off for like 380 and 4 touchdowns, being that far away from primetime Kirk. Justin Jefferson is like really good at football.
Yeah,
I
if
don't
they
know.
keep going
I
to
don't.
him, it seems like he's going to keep getting catches if you allow it, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I got too much out of this game. It was fun, right? Like I'm not saying it wasn't a fun game. Uh, Taysom Hill's a surprisingly decent runner of the ball. Um, but yeah, you got two teams that are kind of meh. The Vikings are better than the Saints, so they get the dub. I don't know if I feel overly great about either team through 4 games, but hey, Vikings are 3-1.
Yeah, this is yeah. I think you're going into this game if you're the Saints, you're going into this game with a um, Andy Dalton and no Alvin Kamara
Yeah.
is what you're going. So to have this even within the realm of being able to win it is pretty impressive. Gotta say.
I think it also says a lot about the Vikings defense, though, right? Because you'd kind of hope for more, right? You gave up 25 to Andy Dalton without Kamara. You didn't really pick him off. You got to him twice, but he was pretty efficient on the day as a whole. It's not like you shut him down or anything like that. Dalton looked decent. And as much as I want to say that's on Dalton, I feel like that's more on the Vikings defense. Um, yeah, like I said, I have trouble getting anything of real substance out of this game. I feel like if the Vikings had blitzed the Saints, you would have been like, okay, the Vikings have shown flashes of being a pretty good team this year, and maybe that's them actually being a pretty good team this year. If the Saints had pulled it off, Vikings are fake, right?
Yeah.
Instead, you get kind of this weird middle ground where it's like
Yeah. No.
Vikings still may be pretty good or not. It's
I,
hard to
I'm
say, and the Saints really aren't, but we knew that.
Yeah. I'm really actually lukewarm on this win for them. Vikings should
Yeah,
have had this by a bit more. And really that defense, what you're talking about as far as them underperforming, it really came to light at the end. They had this game with a half minute left. They went up a field goal and it was pitiful defense.
yeah.
They just allowed them right down the middle, just take huge chunks on them and get into a field goal. This should never have come down to a 61 yard attempt for this to go into overtime. Um, but they left the door open enough, and they have obviously. You're talking about Dalvin Cook. You're talking about Justin Jefferson. Um, Offensively, Adam Thielen, all that sort of thing. Even like a Madison, that sort of deal. Like pieces there for sure. On the ground and through the air, but it's just this is a team that it feels like they will be good enough to absolutely be a playoff team. Obviously, they're leading the division right now for this. But yeah, just I don't see it down line. And honestly, if you get this New Orleans team with, I don't know, uh, the week one Jameis Winston and some better health across the board, yeah, you probably don't win this game against the Saints, and I think they'll find that with the good teams if they do end up making the playoffs. Of course, we're just talking about 4 weeks in the season here, but expectations are there. Yeah, I don't see this team being able to make the run, and that's ultimately where they've been. They've been very much this team for a while now.
Yeah.
This team will get you the
I mean,
playoffs. They'll get you into the wild card, but much further,
at
don't
this
see it.
point, though, 4 games in, we're talking about a quarter of the way through the season now, right?
Yeah,
Like
you
we
start
are
to.
starting.
Yeah,
This is where we start to get the clearer picture, and unfortunately for the Vikings, I think that clearer picture is they're just okay. They'll probably make the playoffs because the NFC is pretty weak, and then probably lose in the first round to a higher ranked team, right? Whether it be the Cowboys or the Packers or a team like that who, though uninspiring themselves, are probably better.
Yeah. Um, yeah, let's keep it going. Let's go into the next one. And quite a, I would say this one, again, it's like it's one of those you're happy to win the game, but at what cost sort of thing. Cleveland going into Atlanta and ends up losing 23-20. Of course, coming out of this, Cordero Patterson going down and going to be out for, I'm not too sure the exact length of time. Along with that, it seems like it was just announced that Kyle Pitts is also going to be out for their next upcoming game. So you
Doesn't
get,
matter. They don't throw the ball to him.
yeah, right. I mean, yeah, that's just it. So be interesting here, but in this one, um, hats off to Koo, obviously. Putting up points from beginning
My
to
boy.
end in this game,
My boy.
and just enough done for the Falcons here to take this one. Anything that pops to your mind with this game as
Desmond
you're
Ritter
watching?
needs to start. I think
Yeah.
that's what popped into my mind. I like Marcus Mariota, and I still think in the right situation with the right team, he can do good things. There's no line here, right? Like he doesn't have the pure arm talent and the pocket presence to be able to deal with Atlanta's not great pass blocking. They're very good at run blocking, but they're letting guys through on the pass rush, and I listen, what are the Falcons this year really? Are they a playoff team? No. No, probably not. Right. I think they're better than a lot of people expect. Like I saw a lot of people projecting them to be the first overall pick this year. They're not going to be that. They're gonna do what they did last week and kind of steal you some wins because there is talent there in places. But at this point, you got to figure out what you got in Desmond Ritter because it's not going to be Mariota. So throw Ritter out there, see kind of what you got with him. Let's figure some things out. Finally, a bit of a breakout game from Tyler Allgeier. I've mentioned it before, right? Like he was kind of the guy who I thought would make the great 1-2 with Cordero Patterson, where Allgeier can be a bit more of your running back, a bit more of the guy who runs the ball, and Cordero Patterson doing Cordero Patterson things on those scat back plays, right? Uh, Very good game from Tyler Allgeier. Hopefully, hope to see more of that. But yeah, without the quarterback play, it's hard to really see the Falcons doing anything more.
It's
I'm like I said, I haven't changed my tune on Mariota. I still think there could be a role for him in the NFL as a starter, but it's just not here.
Yeah, I mean 7-19 on the day. This team's obviously going to be steering more toward running the ball, which I think is perfectly fine. It's obviously really unfortunate that you have Patterson go down, and that's just it. When you have Patterson go down, I know obviously the production hasn't been there, but you have a Pitts go down. It's kind of a rough game, if you were to bring a Desmond Ritter in, right? Like you have Drake London potentially that you have some confidence in, but that like they're just not the weapons there. Obviously, it's going to be tough if you bring him in. But that being said, what are you getting out of Marcus Mariota? You're getting 7 for 19, not even 150 yards and a pick. It's that's not going to get it done.
No.
And I do agree. You got to see what you have in Ritter. We'll see with this upcoming game. They have a they have an interesting game, and it has a pretty goddamn big spread. But it's a team that's not been very impressive. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers themselves, but that has a really good defense. This will
Um,
be an interesting test. I don't know if you'd want to put Ritter out against that
no,
defense,
no,
but
that's not
but
your first
soon,
game. That's
but
not your
soon,
first game.
but soon. I agree.
Um, but I imagine Mariota struggles again against that Bucks defense.
Probably. Yeah.
Then you got the Niners after that. That's another tough defense,
Yeah.
right? But you get past those couple of games. Bengals defense is not spectacular. They're all right, but they're not the kind of defense that you scare. a young quarterback away from.
Yeah.
Panthers have a great defense, but offensively they're not going to put up a lot. So that's the kind of game where, as a young quarterback, again, even if you struggle a little bit, you're still in a game. You still have a chance to get your team a win, right? I do think after that Niners game is the point where you have the real chance to bring in Ritter and see. I don't think the Falcons will wait that long. I think in this Bucs game, if Mariota struggles, I would not be surprised to see them turn to Desmond Ritter.
Yeah. It's you don't want to put him in the wrong situation, but yeah, exactly. Like you also have a team that is fringe. They're absolutely, I think, in this
In the
NFC
NFC,
fringe playoff team
is
for sure.
is 8-9, 9-8 unrealistic for the Falcons? No, I don't think so. Is 9-8 good enough to make the playoffs in the NFC? Maybe.
7 seed potential, right there,
Right?
right there, man. They open that thing up to
That's
7 seeds, and yeah, it's a whole different ball game. You could be 500 and be right there.
that's
Very
that's just
interesting.
it. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I think, you know, if the Falcons go into the breakdown 20 or something like that, that's the perfect time to bring in Desmond Ritter, right? Like if you're really getting beat up by the Bucks, you go into the break down pretty bad. That's the time, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
you're playing a tough defense, but we're already down 20. It's not like you're going to make it worse. Go out there and just play your game. See what happens.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that game. Nick Chubb is very good.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Nick Chubb. I mean, that's all you really got to lean on right now. If you're Cleveland, just kind of
Yep.
the same feel of what you had with Atlanta in a way. You just kind of were able to lean on Patterson. You'll get that
Yep.
with you know, you'll get that with the backup apparently. See what Tyler could do for the Falcons going forward in that role.
Caleb Huntley, too.
Yeah, Hundley.
Sneaky good
Yeah.
game. Undrafted guy out of Ball State. Had a very good career at Ball State. Those are the kind of guys who tend to sneak in, right? You go undrafted from one of those lower level D1 schools that, you had an unbelievable career, but nobody really trusts the numbers based on the fact that, you're playing Northern Illinois and North Texas every week. But then, you get on the practice squad and you start recreating it, and it's like, okay, let's see him in some game time. And then you start recreating it in the game. There's been a lot of running backs that have had careers like that from the 6th, 7th round, where it's just like, you went to name of random lower class D1 school, and we don't trust your numbers yet. But you slowly build up that trust. Caleb Huntley could be a guy who sneaks in like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's another guy that might sneak up on some people. I guess he's not sneak up on people. No, people know the name Cooper Rush now. We'll go on the next game. The Washington Commanders going into Dallas and
It was always Dak. It was always Dak.
dropping a pretty this game wasn't ever in contention. 10-25. Cooper Rush doesn't lose apparently, not yet. Anyways, doing enough. I mean, this was a Washington team that they are who we thought they were. Carson Wentz they're still going to have him slinging the rock as many times as he does, even though they have an Antonio Gibson. I even like McKissick, even though his stats in this game are hilarious because he had one really good run in garbage time for 33 yards. Otherwise, he went 7 carries for 7 yards. So, kind of rough game for him. Dodson, I believe, unfortunately getting injured in this game as well. Thomas coming back, but he's been dinged up. So, for Washington, this game, you didn't look good, and you probably only got worse. Right now, Dallas, I mean, outside of, unfortunately, I think Pollard got dinged up in this game, and you're not really getting real production out of Elliott, but you got to be happy with how Cooper Rush has just kind of been able to step in, and hey, he's doing enough, and obviously this Dallas defense is getting at it.
You know what it is with Cooper Rush that's really impressive? That makes you kind of, when you watch him, that makes you kind of stop and go, okay, he might be able to play a little bit of ball. He's not afraid to take the shot downfield, but it's always smart. This is a guy who hasn't thrown a pick yet this year, right? This isn't a guy who's Carson Wentzing ones up into the double coverage, right? You got a guy deep downfield. He's got the arm to do it, but he's not reliant on it, right? He's very smart with how he plays.
Yeah,
Accuracy issues a little bit. He can be a little bit
it's there.
inconsistent throwing the ball. There's a reason he's a 28-year-old backup,
Yeah.
right? And that we haven't seen more Cooper Rush.
Yeah, you're gonna get, instead of the Wentz to where he's throwing a pick, it's just gonna be an incompletion to no man's land. Basically, it seems like that's how he's gonna
Yeah,
throw
yeah.
balls and not be a great accuracy quarterback, but he's getting the job done when he does complete those balls, right?
Because as a coach, you'd much rather that, right? You would much rather the guy who, if he's gonna occasionally sail one on guys by a few yards, but they're going to no one, as opposed to Carson Wentz, who's gonna sail one on guys from time to time, and they're going right into a defender's hands,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm not saying I'm not all on the bandwagon of Cooper Rush and this guy needs to be a starter somewhere and yada yada yada. I'm not there yet, but I like a lot of it, right? Like this is a guy who like. I don't look at him and go, "You are destined to be a backup once this is done." I see the potential there as like hey, listen, this is a guy who is winning games. Let's face it, it's not like the Cowboys won this game because Elliott and Pollard ran them to death.
Yeah.
They put up a decent enough point number. 25 points is going to win you games a lot in the NFL if your defense is good enough. They won this offensively, anyways, on the arm of Cooper Rush.
Arma Cooper Rush, they also, I think one thing they'll go through that isn't told in those initial numbers, at least kind of looking at the player numbers, is Dallas stayed pretty penalty free in this game, and Washington had flags all over the place on them. They could not help themselves. The offense is actually operated in somewhat of a similar way. Both went 5 for 15 on third down, so you're making a third your third downs right there. Time of possession wise, Washington had the ball 10 minutes longer on offense than Dallas ever did. They just kept shooting themselves in the foot themselves on offense, and Dallas didn't make those same mistakes. And they got some defensive penalties to help them down the field. I think at least 1 or 2 PIs went Rush's way in this game as well. Again, smart throws down the field. It doesn't have to be a completion if you're getting a PI that's 20, 30 yards
Yeah.
down the field, whatever. You're picking up first downs that way. You'll take that every time. Also, very interesting that I think the ability not to turn the ball over. I think with rookies, you'd see it with the picks, obviously. You'd also see with the fumbles. This offensive line's doing a great job of keeping him upright. He's not taking too many hits, obviously. He's not having fumbled the ball. Not a young guy, obviously, but an experienced guy, right? It's just a guy that you wouldn't expect to be super poised. And the way you get them into that situation is by having the pass rush getting at him. And Dallas has been doing a great job of not letting the guy take sacks. So,
Yep. 4 starts this year, 4 touchdowns, no picks, hasn't thrown less than 200 yards in a game. Take that kind of quarterback play every time.
let's keep it going into another game. And you'd argue you want to take the quarterback play from both these guys. Interestingly enough, not the biggest names, but we'll go into it. The high-scoring game of the weekend, Seattle going into Detroit in an absolute just smoke show, 48-45. Seattle ended up taking it. Geno Smith,
On fire.
320 yards, 2 touchdowns on 23 completions. Jared Goff on the other side, 26 completions, 378 for 4 touchdowns themselves. A pick in there as well. The rushing game for both teams, Rashad Penny all of a sudden getting some great production there. Jamal Williams on the other side making up for Swift not being in. But does this speak more of these teams' defenses?
Yes.
Think so.
We've seen Geno Smith get exploited this year by good defenses where they'll let him complete those underneath balls, and then anytime he tries to go over the top, there's nothing there. Right, and we saw it against the Broncos. We saw it against the Niners. Right, the second Geno tried to do anything other than dump the ball underneath, he had nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I get that everybody's big on the Geno Smith bandwagon right now, and I love it, right? Because the Geno Smith story is awesome, right? The guy who was unbelievable at West Virginia goes to the shit show that is the Jets, gets Jets, bounces around a little bit as a backup, and now all of a sudden looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Everybody wants that story to be the real thing, but I don't quite think it is the story. I think the story over the last couple weeks has been, man, Falcons defense bends a lot, but doesn't break enough that it's a problem. Boy, the Detroit Lions defense breaks a lot.
Yeah. I mean, historically bad numbers for the first 4 games of the season, to where if the trend continues, they will put up. This will be a defense that gives up by far the most points, touchdowns in a season by a good stretch.
This team should be 3-1.
That's the other thing is we're seeing enough from this team to where they should actually be picking up some wins here, but it's that's gonna cost them. You can't, you just can't give up 48. Not against the Seahawks. This isn't a team that should be doing this. I think the worst number right there, Geno Smith. Yeah, he goes off, and I think you can't tamp him down. I don't know how you're letting Rashad Penny blow you up for that much. 2 touchdowns as well.
I like Rashad Penny, but there's no fucking way
There's no
Rashad
way.
Penny should go 17 for 151.
Yeah, just
Like,
can't do
just
it.
no.
Can't
No. Shout out to the scoregami that happened in this game. 48-45 is indeed a scoregami.
Yes.
Yeah, Jared Goff looks fucking good, man. And it doesn't seem to matter who's running the ball. They're running the ball well. DeAndre Swift obviously is unbelievable, but Jamal Williams running the ball really well. They finally have started getting the ball to TJ Hawk, right? It only took them losing all of their receivers, but hey, fun fact, TJ Hawkinson also really good at the footballs.
Yeah.
Man, if this defense could do anything,
Yeah,
fantastic.
It's this thing, it's just like this game is such an outlier, but you didn't make the fact that Seahawks literally went through this entire game without punting the ball once.
Yep.
You can't have it. You just you gotta find a way to get some stops, because the turnovers weren't all there. It's just you gotta do that, and then both these teams, racking up a decent amount of penalties. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about this. It's a really volatile way to try to compete in games. Detroit was not great on third down, 4 of 10 on the game for on third down, but they went on fourth down 3 times and they made all 3 of them.
Yep.
That's not sustainable.
Nope.
You're gonna be giving some 4 and outs on that. Like that's not smart. That's not smart to have to go for it 3 times. Yeah, and then you just gotta get those stops on the other side. They Seattle was 9 for 12 on third down. Just defense got to figure out a way. You gotta figure out a way. That's as simple as it comes. Like,
I think this week's game is the fascinating one for the Lions defense, right? Like, surely to God the Patriots aren't going off on you, right? Like, not Bailey Zappi, right? Like, you're not gonna let it happen, right?
I mean, he put up quite an interesting game last week. Made that a lot more interesting against the Pack than it ever should have been, right? So
Brady Zappi? Is that what we're gonna call him now? Is that his new thing?
We shall see. We shall see. Here's another head scratcher. We'll get right into the next game, I feel. Tennessee going into Indy. Indy team we just talked about having won a 12-9 game. Loses a 24-17 game to a Tennessee team that hasn't been looking anything good. But is able to hold a 2-touchdown lead going into the half. And all of a sudden, yeah, Colts can't put up a goddamn thing. Put up one touchdown drive in the third quarter, and no other points are scored that entire second half. Um, Tennessee's got to be happy with that Derrick Henry production. JT obviously going down for the Colts in this game, and now has been followed by Hines. Um, this one was kind of the precursor to how bad this offense was gonna, as far as the Colts are concerned, how bad this offense was gonna perform in last night's game. You kind of see the writing on the wall when he had him Taylor go down, but yeah, another crazy game where Matt Ryan is actually putting up some pretty decent numbers in this one. It's crazy that that guy was able to put up 350 plus and 2 touchdowns last week and seems to throw some of the worst passes you've ever seen last night. It's just the anomaly of that guy.
I don't know. I don't know what this Colts team is. I really don't. Their
Yeah.
offensive line is abysmal, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just really bad. And I know that it's banged up, and it's banged up like a lot. Um, but man, you know, this is another one of those games, much like the Viking Saints game, where I don't really know what I was supposed to glean out of this. The Titans preyed on a banged up Colts line and stopped the run. We know that with both of these teams, whoever runs the ball wins. Derrick Henry ran the ball quite well. Titans win.
Yeah.
Tannehill threw for 137 yards. That's the game plan for the Titans, baby. That's how you win games.
Well,
Never let him throw.
yeah,
Keep the ball out of his hands. Put it in Derrick Henry's.
it's obviously the conservative approach, but again, this is the thing. On the other side, I mean, you're talking about a pick thrown, 2 fumbles lost, 3 turnovers for the Colts. Killing yourself with that stuff. Nothing on the other side. As much as it's like it's a pretty abysmal line as far as Tannehill is concerned, and no turnovers there, and you
Nope.
get just enough out of Derrick Henry. This team's able to move the ball down the field, and yeah, you go up 2 touchdowns ahead at the half. Um, they set themselves up for success. If they could, if they keep themselves that clean as far as their turnover advantage, that sort of thing. If you're getting +2, +3 turnovers against teams, you typically find ways to win games because they're just shooting themselves in the foot. So I think that's gonna have to continue to go for them because outside of Henry, what explosiveness are they gonna really have on offense? You're not gonna really find that from Tannehill on any kind of consistent basis. So you really gotta find that consistency in, not making the mistakes. You're not gonna make crazy plays that are gonna move the needle that much. But if you can keep it, a steady climb sort of thing, that's how this team's gonna have to win games.
I think, there's a lot of disappointment for the Colts as well with Bernard Raymond. And, I don't want to point out anybody on that line because it has been universally bad. This is the guy you drafted out of Central Michigan who came into the draft with a lot of hype as like a great pass blocking blindside tackle. He's gonna have to work on run blocking a little bit, but the pass blocking is there. He has just been getting beat by everybody. And I think that's really hurt this line. Um, when you're the guy beside Quentin Nelson, all you got to do is guard that edge, right? Anything in the middle, Nelson's gonna get. Just get that edge, and he has not been able to seal off the edge at all. And it feels like teams are just getting through there. And you know, obviously they're missing Wesley French, who I think was somebody they were relying on to play some big minutes for them at center. Um, Luke Tenuta, I know, is a guy that they got in from Virginia Tech, who they would like to have. I think Buffalo drafted him, then cut him, and they picked him up, and he had a really good preseason for them, and immediately IR'd. I get that. You still got to find a way to get something together. Like we were talking about that Bengals offensive line and how much it struggled, but it scrapped its way back to being a respectable offensive line again the last couple weeks. They fought and clawed and they're keeping their guys upright and getting some stuff going. They're starting to piece it together. This Colts line doesn't feel like they're piecing anything together. Right? It's a lot of new pieces that are there, but it doesn't feel like it's gelling. It feels like there's more problem there than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's. I think this is a thing to where if they are able to, get healthy in that backfield, if this team stays, because right now I think it's just you have a game like this to where Matt Ryan puts up some numbers, but it doesn't amount for anything. Doesn't amount to a win. Last night's game, obviously, he's just making some from terrible throws. Uh, this team has to operate out of the run. I don't think there's any way around that. This team's not going to be. If they're having to throw the ball a whole bunch in a game, it's just not going to work out in their favor. It seems like. So they got to get healthy with their number one, their number two backs. You're going to be begging to get a guy like Jonathan Taylor back, and that'll help because that kind of changes your scheme for a line. If pass blocking is a whole shitload tougher for an offensive line than run blocking is going to be. So if you kind of get that established again as a team, with the way your defense typically plays as the Colts, you should be able to be pretty scrappy enough to get some wins. But yeah, until they're able to get that run game established again, it's going to be tough going. It's going to be real tough going. And I think last night, they just got beat up by a pretty good defensive team in Denver, but it was ugly. So you'll take the win. You'll take the win, but that's all you get out of it, right? It's just like it's very.
Let me just throw out a potential solution there for the Colts. 3 words: Big Dick Nick. Let's get Nick Foles in there, baby. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. They're hopeful Jonathan Taylor is going to be back for week 6. Maybe this is one of those weird things where you get a light ankle sprain and it sucks, but it ends up being a good thing for you. You get the week off, you get to rest, right? You go into week 6 a little bit healthier than you were before the ankle sprain, right? Maybe it ends up being a good thing. That's all they can hope.
Yeah. And I think down the line, I mean, despite everything, at the end of the day, as we sit here today, both these teams, 2 wins, 2 losses. Colts have that extra tie. I mean, they'll be scrappy in there. They'll be fighting, obviously, I think for playoff spots, both these teams, but
I don't think so.
Yeah?
No.
I think they'll be right there. I mean, the AFC South is a very interesting division. We all of a sudden have the interest of a Jacksonville Jaguars team that's going to come out of nowhere, but the Texans aren't shit. So you got to imagine like those will be, obviously a tie's already happened with one of those, but I think both these teams absolutely will be there in the playoff picture as we go down.
One of the Dolphins or Bills is going to win the East. The other is going to be a wild card team.
Right.
One of the Chiefs or Chargers is going to win the West. You would have to imagine the other's a wild card team.
I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen this before with this Chargers team, man.
And then you would imagine of the Browns, Bengals, and Ravens, 2 of them are playoff teams. And you would hope to God it's not the Browns, because that means that's horrible voodoo implications that I don't want to throw out there. I don't think the South sends 2 teams in the playoffs. I think you have to win the South to make the playoffs. I don't think either one of these teams are winning the South.
I don't necessarily disagree. I would say that Both these teams have the potential to win their division, and they will be right there in the hunt for the wild card. Whether they make it or not, I'm no guarantee. Oh yeah, two teams from the South, but it's a 17 pool now. You get these three wild cards, so you're gonna pick up one, maybe two mid teams. As much as we were talking about the AFC being the stronger division as far as how talent has shifted and that sort of thing, they still, I mean, some of these divisions, that sort of thing. There's a lot of 2-2 teams right now after week 4, so anything's possible. I think.
To be honest, I think whoever wins the South is going to be kind of a meh team. So
Yeah, I mean, 10 win maybe to win the division, that'd be insane, but it could happen.
I
Absolutely.
don't even know if it'll be that high.
No,
I think you could have a 9-win division winner out of the South. Because
absolute
honestly,
potential.
they're
It's not like
all
the
about
AFC.
as good as each other, right? Which is
Outside
to
of
say,
Houston. Outside of Houston.
well, yeah,
but-
yeah, yeah. Outside of Houston, like I'm talking about the three that matter.
Isn't that crazy though? That after just 4 weeks, that Jacksonville has risen from the fucking ashes to be considered like this is a team they could scrap every now and then.
I
Like
mean,
very,
they've
very
risen from
interesting.
the ashes to be considered mediocre to all right.
Hey, hey. I can't speak for Jags fans by any means. I gotta imagine they are thrilled with being
Yeah,
like
yeah, no.
in contention, like anywhere in there. Like this is a team that
No.
got people a little excited, and they're kind of scrappy against Philly. We'll get to that game soon. Anyways,
We'll get to that game soon.
let's go on to the next one though. Unless you have anything more to hit on.
Nope.
On the,
We've already talked about that shit game for way too long.
yes. Another one. Another. I guess shit game, but I don't know. Interesting in the development for this next week. It made actually my picks a little interesting based on what happened this week. Chicago going into New York. The
Yeah.
Giants end up doing it. They end up taking the game 20-12. Another just.
It was exactly what we said it was going to be.
Yeah.
There was maybe a little bit more points than we were expecting.
Yeah.
I think we were jokingly saying things like 6-3. But honestly, this was about what we were expecting out of this game.
Yeah, I mean, you have Daniel Jones ends up getting dinged up, injured ankle on this one. You have to actually have Tyrod Taylor comes in. Tyrod Taylor throws 3 passes, and one of those happens to be an interception. So pretty rough out there. Quads,
Welcome back, Tyrod.
yeah. Saquon Barkley, quads is looking vintage form. They're making him do it too. Because goddamn, are they not doing anything else with the ball? 31 carries.
Fucking carries.
Here, take it. Yeah, you're gonna
They're
take it
like,
again.
we will run you until you break.
And same thing with Daniel Jones, like pretty impressive. But yeah, Daniel Jones run the ball 6 times, picking up a couple touchdowns and some good yardage, some good productive yardage out of the guy too. It's that's pretty wild.
Got that white boy speed, man. He's freaky quick.
That's
Yeah, they're gonna run Saquon until he breaks. Right? Let's be honest. They're just gonna run him until the wheels fall off.
and
When will that happen? Hard to say. But I don't know if you want to be running Saquon 31 times consistently, but they kind of have to. They don't have anything
stuck.
else.
Like and they just got more dinged up. Their injury report this upcoming week is a mess. Like I started looking, I was like, who the hell do they have to even play the positions anymore? Linebackers out, corners out, wide receivers out.
Couple big ones too.
Exactly. So they're a beat up team. The Chicago team though, like you feel like the identity is they're gonna be a run first team. They kind of have shown the numbers since for that. They still actually have Fields throwing the ball. This mid-20s, low-20s for this, obviously. But you get up to the mid-20s, that's kind of like a decent number of throws. They're just not getting it. It's just, obviously, they don't have very many weapons to go to. But, outside of all-right game from Mooney, Komet's just being wasted out there. you
Just
just
pull Kometa quarterback, please.
you got your best offensive player, arguably, outside of Mooney. Herbert had a decent game, I suppose, but it's your kicker Bagley. That's
Yep.
about it.
Yep.
Is it Bagley?
I think it's Badgley.
Badgley, thank you. Yeah, a tough one. Just a game where I don't know what you really take away. Like, obviously, New York has to just be worried about the health of their guys going forward, all across the board. But for Chicago, this is just like you just never really, as close as this game was, and this was a 12-14 game. Um, yeah, it just kind of ends on a whimper for you. You just never really collected after a third quarter field goal, and uh, pretty ugly in that regard. Also, very interesting in the fact that they did pretty decent. Only 5 penalties against them, decent amount of yards, but the fact that this Chicago Bears team lost 3 fumbles and they fumbled the ball 6 times. They only gave up those fumbles 50% of the time. How the hell are you fumbling the ball 6 times in a game? What is that?
I don't know. I
That's
don't know
rough,
what,
dude.
like, what do you even say anymore at this point? Like,
uh,
so I like, as an aside, you are right. Michael Badgley was probably their best offensive player last week. Not even on the team anymore. It's with the Lions now. Gonna go kick for the Lions now.
that's insane.
Um,
Holy shit. Oh man, that's wow. I
I
didn't
found it
realize
funny when
that.
you said that because I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's with the Lions now. Austin Seibert got released for him,
Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah,
which
yeah,
is rough on Austin Seibert,
yeah.
right? Who was having a decent start to the year. Hurts his groin, right? They throw him out there to take a couple kicks that they really shouldn't have thrown him out there to take with a hurt groin. Misses them both, gets his ass cut.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
wants to be a kicker in the
Yeah.
NFL? That job sucks.
No doubt. Um, yeah, that's crazy. I did not I did not know that. Yeah, I got nothing more for that one. Anything else you want to add on for that? All
The less we talk about the Bears, the better.
right, let's keep it going then. Very interesting game in this next one, down the line here. Jacksonville versus Philly. We brought this game up a little bit ago. 21-29. Philly's able to take it at home in a very up and down game. Jacksonville came out firing and looking pretty good to do it. 14 points right off the bat. Then Philly scores 29 unanswered, and it just never really came together after that for him, as far as Jacksonville was concerned. But impressive to start. Oddly enough, as far as the stat line is concerned, probably Trevor Lawrence's one of his worst games this season, this early season so far. 11 for 23, 174 yards, a couple touchdowns, but a pick as well. This Eagles team, though, I mean, yeah, not great numbers from Jalen Hurts, but they will run the ball on you, and
Oh boy, will they.
doing it efficiently. Sanders getting in there. They will run the ball, obviously, with Hurts. That will continue. Unfortunately, yeah, outside of a touchdown, not very productive on that. And we will see. I mean, this is your only undefeated team now in the Eagles at 4-0. But I think Jacksonville, at least, with how kind of they started and ended this game, still competitive in there. You gotta like what you're seeing out of Jacksonville, obviously, so far.
See, and I didn't look at it that way. They got the early pick six.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They score a touchdown on their next drive. Okay, Jacksonville's here. And then the same old Jacksonville problems came up. That offensive line is still being held together by duct tape and safety pins, right?
Right.
You still can't give Trevor Lawrence the time that he needs to actually do things, right? Like, he does things because he's unbelievably talented. It has very little to do with what you've done. Christian Kirk is still being played like an elite receiver, and he's just not one. right? There there's things to like, but they almost all are Trevor Lawrence. Everything else there feels very question marky. I like
Yeah.
James Robinson, but he can be inconsistent at times. ETN doesn't always run with the most efficient numbers. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that their offensive line is shit.
Yeah.
But like,
This is another one though that came down again. It's huge. The turnover problems. This team fumbled. I think Lawrence himself fumbled the ball 3 times, I
three
believe.
times.
That's a symptom of the offensive line
Yeah.
troubles that you're having right there. Philly was getting at it all day against them, and it goes to show Philly had twice the ball on offense for it's twice as long
Yeah.
as Jacksonville. That's not going to be sustainable. And basically, they just got drained out. This, they came out nice, firing early, and then once they started turning the ball over themselves, all of a sudden that defense is only going to keep you in there for so long, and they just got slowly bled out basically to where this game
Death by
became
1,000 cuts.
yeah, it became just too much of a stretch. It's a Jacksonville team that obviously, like Lawrence, when he has been given the time, even their running game, that sort of thing, like it has some pop to it when they're given the opportunity. But you put yourself in that big of a hole, your defense is getting drained that much, you're probably not getting the stops the same way on the defensive side, and your offense is just giving short fields to the other team. Recipe to lose these games, left and right. You can't be doing that. Can't be giving up that many fumbles. Because otherwise you played them straight up pretty well. But the turnovers are just really going to bite you in the ass every time. You're giving them way too many opportunities, short fields.
I I get what you're saying about playing them straight up pretty well, and I don't necessarily disagree. I just feel like Philly bossed this game way more than this score suggests. I feel like 29-21 is very flattering to the Jaguars. I felt like Philly dominated this game from the second quarter onward. They just did what they wanted, which was for the most part run the ball, just kill them with first down after first down after first down.
Right.
Right? They're that defense is strong. They just bossed the game to me. And I get that the scoreline looks good. And again, part of that is a late touchdown that helps a little bit on that too. Right. I just I don't necessarily hate the game the Jaguars played. And I get what you're saying in the sense of this is a Jacksonville Jaguars team that if they had 2 wins all year at the beginning of the season wouldn't have surprised us. So to see them kind of stay relatively in the fight with Philadelphia, even if they weren't really in the fight, right? It's like one of those boxing matches where, it's a huge mismatch and the guy stayed up and put in a good show, but he lost by unanimous decision relatively easily.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I got out of this game.
I think for me it's the the turnovers were the worst because like I don't think you give up 29 points unanswered in the middle of this game
I
if
did.
if not for the turnovers. I think you potentially are putting up points yourself. You're dinking in a field goal every now and then. Just that little buffer is enough to where like this game is really in because at the end of it, this is an 8 point game. It's a single possession game that it ends up coming down to. Granted, a little flattering, perhaps as far as a. I think this could have even been obviously more points for Philly based on the situations that they were given. This some potential field goals or whatever touchdowns instead. But I think the idea that you're just giving the ball for free back to them. You're not even punting the ball because they have they have a pretty decent punt game. 53-yard average per punt. They only punt the ball 3 times though. They turned it over 5 times in this game. Like so you're not even getting the field shifts in that situation. And for a team that's going to run the ball on you, I mean they're you're basically like, okay, we have guaranteed points. We could just run it on you, and if it works, then we're getting touchdowns out of it. If it doesn't, we're still getting points out of you every time, and you're just getting slowly drained that way. So it's just kind of you're never 5 turnovers, probably going to be winning games with that.
Yeah.
Never.
I think there's a lot of glimpses of good for the Jaguars.
Yeah.
But honestly, this is a team that the real good's going to come this offseason. If they're willing to add to this team, that's when the real good is going to come. Because
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is a dude. Trevor Lawrence is a dude, and he's shown it the last couple weeks, right?
I mean, their cap situation is going to be crazy because they just spent a whole bunch of money this offseason, right?
Oh
So
man, and Christian Kirk too. Like, listen,
he reset that market. That's
beating a dead
redemption.
horse, and I get it.
Yeah.
But man, when he's playing against good cornerbacks, the kind of cornerbacks that you pay a guy the kind of money you paid Christian Kirk to play against, he's invisible. He's just he's not that guy. Like
Yeah.
you're paying him like he's Jamar Chase. He's not Jamar Chase. Like
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I like. See, that's the funny thing, because I'd see Christian Kirk basically a couple games at least a year, if not more than that, when he was playing for the Cardinals.
yeah.
And you like some things out of it, but it was just like in that role with everything that he had around him, Hollywood Brown, or not Hollywood Brown back then, but like I don't know why I'm forgetting their. Sorry, what was it? Yeah, exactly. Like that worked. He cannot be your one,
No,
and
not the guy.
and with like what Zay Jones, like it's
Who is also not the guy.
and I like Zay Jones, but again, that's your like third, that's your 3 or 4. Like he's not.
I like
Yeah.
I like Zay Jones the way I like Jawan Jennings.
Yeah.
A great piece on a receiving core, not the piece on a receiving core.
Yeah.
Right.
And for a team that is going to like to run the ball, because they do have a couple pieces, you got like Robinson, that sort of thing, and Etienne. Always forget that name up. But you gotta like those, so it's like, so you're gonna be running out of formations that perhaps are gonna help your run game as well. Do you want Kirk and Zay Jones to be your guys as far as like if you're running only 2 wideouts out there? It's just like it's kind of a They gotta find it. They gotta find a way to make that work, or maybe trade or something. I don't know what the hell they're.
They
gonna
gotta find that offensive line.
And
That's
that.
gotta be the main thing.
And that too,
right?
Yeah.
Because you keep Trevor Lawrence upright and you get this running game going, this team has some real potential. Trevor Lawrence is that guy. He is very good. ETN and Robinson as your 1-2, you're going to be able to run the ball well if you can get blocking for him. Like get an offensive line there, and you can make do with what you have at receiver for now. That's why you paid the money, right? Is that with the talent you have at quarterback, you can make do with what you have. But he's got to have time, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of that 11 of 23 is largely on the fact that he was lucky if he had 2 seconds back there.
Yeah, that definitely going to be something they got to look at coming up this off season for sure. Let's keep it going into what a fun little end of the game this was, because we got to see Zach Wilson coming back, and we also see the first coming of Kenny Pickett. The New York Jets going into Pittsburgh and stealing one at the end against the Steelers, 24-20. Zach Wilson, not a fantastic game in your first one back, but you get it done. Throw for over 250. You get a touchdown in there. You rallied, I guess. Nicely at the very last drive there for you. Kenny Pickett. Now the 3 picks, and I think everything I heard was
is the most unfair thing I have ever seen in my life.
It's 2 of those picks you're talking about. Claypool not going up for it for the first one, and then a Hail Mary pick at the very end of the game for the last one.
And the second one literally hits Freiermuth dead in the hands. He volleyball sets this thing up. There you go. Go take your pick.
Yeah.
Two of
So
the three picks were in the hands of his receivers, and they didn't get it.
yeah,
And the third one is a Hail Mary.
yeah,
That stat line does no favors to Kenny Pickett, who I thought played a really good game.
ran the ball in
I
for a
thought
couple
he
scores,
was,
right? And so
yeah, I thought he was really strong out there. I was like, okay, Steelers, don't go back to Trubisky, please.
at this point you can't. At this point you
Yeah,
can't. You're pretty much going down to Pickett. I don't see how
yeah,
you now pull the kid,
yeah,
unless it completely 180s from here. Um,
no. And I don't see that happening. I love Kenny Pickett. I said it going into the draft. I'm sorry, Carolina. You really thought that Baker was that much better than Pickett, right? That you were willing to pay for Baker over Kenny Pickett. That you look at Tennessee. You really like Tannehill over Pickett, right?
yeah,
Like I don't love some of the moves at the draft from those teams that looked at Kenny Pickett and were like, small hands. This is a guy who can throw the ball. He gets how to play quarterback. He looked so poised in there. Nearly led this Steelers team back to a win. Probably should have led this Steelers team back to a win if his guys could catch a ball. Um, it's a stat line that if you didn't watch the game, you look at and go, "Well, he's shit," right? But it just doesn't tell you the story at all. I really like Kenny Pickett's game. Uh, for the Jets, freaking listen, Zach Wilson. I don't hate Zach Wilson. I think he can do a lot of good things. Run the ball more, please. You have two pretty damn good running backs in Breece Hall and Michael Carter. No excuse to be throwing the ball 36 times.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think it really fits them. They
No.
should probably be sticking the ball sticking the ball on the ground a little bit more. It's funny looking at this game though. It's just like these teams did play so similar. As much as like there was some crazy score disparity at one point, 20-10. This game was at one point late or somewhat late in the game. And Jets were able to rally back, but both teams, six third down conversions, a very close same amount of plays. Yards per play, like 5.2 for the Jets, 5 flat for the Steelers. 7 penalties to 8 penalties. Just like time of possession, 30 minutes and 1 second for the Steelers, 29 minutes and 59 seconds. So a 2 second difference in time of possession. So these teams were like it was a very interesting, two young quarterbacks that they're going to make mistakes. It's not always going to look so pretty. And both these teams should probably be really trying to utilize their run game as much as possible. I think we saw a decent amount of that, obviously, out of the Steelers. That's why they kind of got the lead in this game, I feel. Jets need to do more of that. But, yeah, Breece Hall, Najee on the other side, like, these are guys that you can operate your offense through, and it's only going to help, I think, these young guys out as far as, give them some play action to work off of. Because, your weapons, I mean, I like guys like Corey Davis and stuff like that for the Jets. You got, Freiermuth, even though he did make that mistake for the Steelers. So you got stuff there, weapons on both sides. But, probably a little bit more run-centric for the Jets, and you'll find yourself in more of these games. And, and a great rally. I mean, they I saw that last drive for the Jets. I mean, they did everything they needed to win this game right at the end. So hats off to them on that.
For sure. I feel like this is the kind of game though that I think the Steelers fans probably leave feeling a little bit better about than the Jets fans even. Right? Yeah, you get
Wow.
that last minute drive and win the game, and that's great.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Zach Wilson didn't show you what you would have hoped to have seen from Zach Wilson, I think, in that game. Whereas the Steelers fans are going to leave that game going, fuck, if we had just started Kenny Pickett from
Right.
the start, we probably win that game.
Probably. Yeah.
Right? So I think that's one where the Steelers fans leave going, okay, I feel a little bit better about this than I thought I would after a loss. And the Jets fans leave going, wish I felt a little bit better about this win. Dub's a dub, and you take it, but it wasn't quite, I think, what Jets fans were hoping to see.
Yeah. keep it going into the next game. And this one, I was actually able to catch this game uh, for the most part. This is the one I mainly watch in the morning. Um, the Buffalo Bills able to go into Baltimore and take it against the Ravens 23-20. A pretty wild game. If you only watch the first half or so of this game, like not only was Baltimore, doing as well and the score was as what it was, um, yeah, up until that very last drive, this game was 20-3, and that Buffalo offense was not looking good at all. They were getting uh, absolutely stunned. It was pretty amazing to see that offense doing as bad as they were, but they're able to get that touchdown right before half, and yeah, the momentum just never went away, and yeah, you kind of feel it, and it was just kind of a slow-ish bleed out, and then right at the end, you're able to win that game for Buffalo. Real gritty win for Buffalo on this one.
Yeah, man, Josh Allen's clutch. That's what I got out of that game. Is like Josh Allen didn't have his best game, obviously. But man, when push came to shove and that team needed to win, Josh Allen pushed them across the finish line. I don't know if you could say the same about Lamar, right? It in the clutch time when push came to shove, Lamar was making some bad mistakes out there. Whereas Josh Allen looked poised, composed, he was going to win this game. And it really did in a game where we're talking about two potential MVP candidates, two teams that revolve around their quarterbacks. Yeah. Josh Allen won the duel.
Yeah. Ultimately, yes. This game really, again, there were some opportunities, especially in the second half. Yep. This Ravens team was moving the ball.
Yep.
And they kept on. I think of their 9 penalties, at least 3 of those 9 literally just ended drives for them because it was just like all of a sudden it's a holding. And when you're playing the style of ball that the Ravens do, in which you have, quarterbacks kind of like scrambling out, like impromptu run plays, all the more likely that you're going to have an offensive lineman that's going to be out of position trying to just make that block and just going to grab that jersey just a bit longer, right? And that's all it takes. And there you go, 10 yards. And all of a sudden, 1st and 20. And this Ravens team cannot operate out of 1st and 20, 1st and longs. Like, no way. Like, that's not how this team's going to be built for success. Because you gotta have that option to run the ball. And with a little threat of some short pass or a quick Lamar scramble, like that little versatility right there, giving yourself those options is what's going to allow this Ravens team to win. And when you are able to pigeonhole them into long, obvious situations like that, nothing. They're getting stopped immediately on that stuff.
Lamar's got a good arm. It's not an elite arm, right? So I think if you can get them into those situations, Lamar's going to struggle with that. Where Lamar's really going to shine is when you can get him in 3rd and short to 3rd and medium, where he can use he's got unbelievable accuracy on the arm, right? He can hit guys 4 or 5 yards down the field or take off for that scramble and get the first down, right? But the second you're 10, 15 longer and he's got to use that arm to go deep, he doesn't quite have that the way Josh Allen does, the way Patrick Mahomes does, right? The way that his counterparts in the elite table have, right? I think that's the piece that Lamar doesn't have. What Lamar does have over those guys is an athletic profile that I think only Josh Allen can really argue he's got, right? But yeah, with Lamar, it's the one thing, right? That's the secret to beating the Ravens. Is if you can get them in obvious passing situations where it's obvious where it's more than 4 or 5 yards, where Lamar's going to have to throw something deep, it can oftentimes get away from him.
Yeah. But ultimately, this game should have been the Ravens.
Yes.
Those penalties killed them. They literally had the ball for twice as long as Buffalo did. Like, time of possession-wise, like, they should have absolutely just stomp them because it's just like you could only ask your defense to do so much. As you know, I think Buffalo's even playing a better defense than some people expected this year for sure. Yeah, you kind of are hanging your guys out to dry when they have to be out there twice as long as the other team. But yeah, hey, a lot of those, those long drives don't mean a damn thing. As if you're getting just past the 50 or something like that, all of a sudden, hey, now you're back 10 yards, like, and you're just creating the stalled runs for yourself. For
I would
runs.
argue, especially with the Bills too, TOP isn't a stat they're going to look at too much because the Bills are always going to be one or two big plays down the field.
Right.
Right. When that Bills offense is truly clicking, unlike almost any other offense in the NFL, they're going to have 4 or 5 play drives that are just going to be like Josh Allen hits you for 40, touchdown.
Right. It's just, yeah, you just can't, it probably just can't be twice as much.
Yeah.
It has to be a little closer, but yeah.
Yeah, that disparages a little bit to the extreme. But I think on a whole, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I'd be willing to bet you there's a lot of matchups like this for the Bills against the other elite teams where they're not even close in time of possession because that's their offense, right? They're going to hit you for 30, 40 yards at a time when they're really clicking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It does make it interesting, and it kind of makes a little bit more sense to like the they stay true to that profile. If you look back to that, was that last year or whatever? Was that the snow game? Patriots and Buffalo. Buffalo still tried to operate through the pass in that game in an absolute fucking
and that's
blizzard.
why they lost that one.
And that's why they lost that one because that offense couldn't do anything. That they still tried to like keep the same profile, and that just
never going to be a ground and pound team. They're never going to be able to beat you on those 3, 4, 5 yard plays, and that is probably the secret to beating the Bills. If you can keep them underneath, right? If you can stop the big plays, that offense just doesn't operate well, right? It's actually what the Dolphins did really well. Right? Like, they gave up the yards, but they kept them from the big explosive plays. Right? It's what the Ravens couldn't do. Right? The Bills had those 2, 3 big plays. I think there was like a 30-yarder to Diggs. Josh Allen had a couple monster runs. Right? I think Dawson Knox had a big 20, 25-yard play over the middle. Right? Those are the kind of things that's when the Bills' offense gets you.
Yeah. Move it on to the next one of the week here. This one was very interesting because, like, I think my initial thought is like, oh yeah, this score looked closer than it was. This game was actually incredibly close. Pretty interesting game. Ends up being a 10-point win, but the Chargers going into Houston take down the Texans 34-24. This game was 27-24 about halfway through the fourth. Very interesting in a game that was at first looking like a complete blowout, and Houston oddly climbed their way back into this one. Can't be incredibly happy if you are a Chargers fan. This is another one of those like kind of very milk toast, like lukewarm wins, right? Like you get it. You get it by 10, so it looks kind of all right on paper, but you really almost let this Texans team take one from you. And
this
can't be doing that. This is a team that should be better than this. This is a 2-2 team that feels every bit like a 2-2 team because they've really underplayed.
Especially you spent so much money on that defense and made what I thought were like a lot of good moves. You add Khalil Mack, you add Sebastian Joseph, you add J.C. Jackson, you add Kyle Van Noy, right? There's so many good players in there.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't feel like it's done anything. The
injured Bosa's really hurting them. I think that's clear. Like, they don't really have anybody opposite of Mack to really make that line, that pass rush work. Because Davis Mills, outside the beginning of this game,
he found a little bit of the form from last year,
Yeah,
right?
he
Like
got
he had been
comfortable.
struggling the last couple weeks. Um,
And Dameon Pierce just ran amok on him. Granted, 75-yard long
I was gonna say,
run. That, but still, 13. You take that 75 out of there, and sometimes it feels unfair to be like, take the 75 out of there, because there's a reason they got that 75-yard run too. Like, you don't just with as many as he ran, like 14 rushes, not a huge number, but like they're gonna go with Pierce, the only guy that ran the ball for this Texans team. He is in that rare case of a pure number one back. It looks like they are going to give him the goddamn workload for sure.
what? Gonna run the ball with Rex Burkhead otherwise? Like,
Throw the ball to him. Apparently, Burkhead will still get you a little production in the receiving game, I suppose. But yeah, don't expect him to run. I guess.
no, I don't know. You know, we saw so much good and bad out of Davis Mills last year, where like he started the season dreadful, found a little something toward the end of the season, and now has started this season dreadful again. Does that mean he picks it back up again?
It's tough going on this Houston team right now. Like, I like them to be a little better than this, but yeah, it's there's a reason they haven't won one yet, obviously. But weird competitive games. I mean, they were right there in this one. They rallied a game they should have won against the Colts. Um, so I don't know. There's a slight, like, I won't say optimism because I don't expect them to like really rack up wins or anything like that. But you're seeing some positives. It's not a bunch of negatives, piled on negatives for this team. You get flashes of something. Mills being a quarterback that you might be able to have out there for a while. Pierce being a guy that you might be able to have out there for a while. You're hoping, anyways, if you're a fan of the team.
I will say Davis Mills had better find some form soon. Uh, because if this goes too long, Texans are going to be picking quite high. I don't know if you've heard about this quarterback class this year.
Right.
It's fucking good.
Yeah. And you know what? That might be the case. And, I think you're probably, I mean, depending, unless this really starts going south for this team. If they kind of, they're able to pick up some out of here wins, they're not going completely over. Mills is playing like mediocre ball. You're probably still having them obviously start and fight, try to fight for the job. But yeah, yeah, might be picking first
Bryce
early. We'll
Young,
see.
CJ Stroud,
We'll see. Yeah, right.
Will Levis. Whew. Not a fun time to be Davis Mills if he doesn't find his game.
Let's keep it moving unless you had anything else on that game. Let's keep moving to another team that might be picking pretty high. I don't know what their pick situation's like, but they sure as hell don't have a quarterback either. It's the Carolina Panthers who hosted the Arizona Cardinals, lost 26-16. A game that you are really wondering what the hell they're going to do with Baker Mayfield going forward. If you are the Panthers, you're wondering what the hell they're going to do with Matt Rule. And honestly, slight, like, I don't even want to say bright spots because I feel like it's unfortunate. You got guys like DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson. They're just kind of lost on this team. And yeah, you wonder where their second destination, their next destination is going to be. So it sure as hell isn't doing anything on the Panthers right now.
Yeah. Man, I really thought that Carolina defense was going to do enough to give them a win here. And to be fair, they didn't play poorly, but and remember when Baker was decent? That was fun.
It's like I felt I felt like he was done really dirty as far as the whole situation, how it ended with the
with his
Browns,
shoulder and
playing through the
everything.
injury and shit like that, and he had his gripes and
Wonder if
whatever.
that had longer term effects
Oh yeah,
than I think even he realized, right? I
yeah.
wonder how much that, because there are some throws that he throws that just look just wobbling out of the arm, 5 yards short. I do wonder if maybe
You know,
that shoulder injury messed him up worse than he was hoping.
yeah, and I almost kind of feel like this might apply to both quarterbacks. I think there's something, yeah, a little bit more medically you could point to for Mayfield, but I think for both these guys, Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, I think there's something mentally that's just not like. I think Baker's rattled for sure. Like he doesn't. I don't think he plays like a very confident quarterback by any means. And Murray, like for as long and like he's been under this offense for a bit now, he doesn't feel like he's really in control of the offense. I think there's something they just need to like beyond the physical. Um, there's something that's not clicking for sure, and I want to say that like there's only we've said this before, and this is kind of an adage of football, anyways. There's not even really 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and I felt like Baker's absolutely in that class. But damn, if like how long does that go for? Because right now, like the way he's playing is absolutely outside. Like you gotta be looking to second options and shit like that. Like he's not looking like one of the 32 top. He's looking definitely in a lower rung at this point.
Honestly, especially in the league right now, if you really look through it, what are we looking at here? Maybe 18 to 20 quality starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now. It feels like there's a lot of teams out there right now that are desperate for a decent quarterback.
Yeah, I will say the the one like the one good thing you can take out of it is obviously like you brought up, you have a emerging or you have potential in this draft class coming up. You also are, I mean, like we're getting these weird scenarios to where like in Dallas, you get enough pieces around him, that sort of thing, and a decent enough offensive line, and that might be it. I think a guy like Cooper Rush has the ability to succeed as long as you have five guys in front of him that could keep him upright. And when you don't have that, um, any quarterback's going to be rattled. Like if you just don't have that offensive line in front of you, and I think that's why you find something like 20 good, worthy quarterbacks in the NFL is because you probably only have 20 offensive lines that are worthy in the NFL as well, right? There's some bad offensive lines out there, and you're doing no quarterbacks succeeding with a bad offensive line in general. Some are able to play around it a bit, but ultimately you're gonna lose out if you don't have those guys up in front. Uh, that you can drop back and pass behind, and you're gonna lead to rattle quarterbacks. You're gonna be, you know, making bad decisions. I think there's got to be a real concern of as much as it's you got like these nice quarterbacks that are coming out into the draft, that sort of thing, and if you're picking early you got to be looking to that, but you know you got to have the guys up in front. You can put anybody back there and they're going to struggle. So what we were worried about for Trevor Lawrence, and that offensive line still needs to get that shit together. Guys only going to last so long if they're getting hit all day. So
Yep.
I don't know. On the other side, uh, you're getting all right stuff from Murray and these guys, but I don't know. I this is a game should be winning. I think Carolina's defense keeps this a little closer, but you can't be sold on this Cardinals team by any means as of yet. They've looked very, very middling, to say the least, if not just kind of bad in some of these games. So we'll see as they go going forward here.
Yeah, I got nothing on the Cardinals out of this game, to be honest with you. They were okay,
All right,
but
we'll move on to the next one because I know you want to talk about this guy. New England going into Green Bay and making this a very interesting game. 27-24. Green Bay ends up taking it. Bailey Zapp. Can you talk about your boy Bailey Zapp?
let
New
me
quarterback for the New England Patriots.
let me tell you about Bailey Zappi, who in his final year at Western Kentucky set the NCAA record for both passing yards by a quarterback and passing touchdowns by a quarterback. Again, we talked about running backs from shit schools who you're not sure if their numbers can come back. The Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, okay? Not always fantastic, but I was surprised Bailey Zappi fell that far. I really was. 6th round pick for a guy who had 62 touchdowns in his last year in college feels a little bit harsh.
Yeah.
I actually like a lot of what Bailey Zappi brings to the game. He's not the quickest dude in the world. Nearly a 5-second 40-yard dash will tell you everything you need to know about that. He's not a big running quarterback, but he's got a good arm. That 62 touchdowns, by the way, came with 11 interceptions across from it. So he's not a guy who turns the ball over a ton. You got Stevenson and Harris as running backs, who we both know can do a job.
Yeah.
I think Bailey Zappi coming in could be a very interesting little shot of life for the Patriots. I really do. Mac Jones was very good last year, but this year has been, the nicest way to put it would be wildly inconsistent. Would be the nicest way of putting it. He's been downright awful at times this year.
Yeah.
You have some weapons at wide receiver for this guy to come into. We talked about Devontae Parker a lot. You have Nelson Aguilar, Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne. There's some guys here who can catch the ball. I will be very interested in watching the Patriots this week because I think the matchup they have this week is perfect for a young quarterback. I think Bailey Zappi can play. You take the 10 to 15, right, for 99 yards and you go, meh, but you can put a lot of that to the side. He comes in not expecting to start by any stretch, right? Hoyer was in this game. He's supposed to be the guy. So he comes in kind of cold, needs a couple seconds to warm up to the game. You're playing a Packers defense that, though not great, does have some veteran guys at the back end of it who know what they're doing, right? He stays clean as far as the interceptions and turnovers go, keeps you in this game. When I heard that they were sending in Bailey Zappi, it was immediately one of those things where it was like, turn that game on. Because again, as a college football person, it's a name that you know, right? That it was a name that coming out of college, you were like, this is a potential late round steal guy. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a it's a testament, I gotta say, to him to be able to come in and do all right. It's nothing that's gonna blow you off the board, but yeah, 10-15 got tutty, did all right in a tough situation where you're not really prepped to come in. Speaks a lot to obviously the Packers. Like, this is a very weird game because if you're just looking at some stats on this one, like, you're getting a great game out of Aaron Jones. You get a pretty good game out of A.J. Dillon. Lazard's catching the balls for you. Rodgers is putting up decent numbers. Everything kind of, written on this is like, wow. Yeah, and in the quarterback situation, you're faced off initially against Brian Hoyer. It's like, all right, Pac's looking pretty good to just be able to, at home, take this away. This game being, anything like it was, as far as close as it was, goes to OT. And this game, right till the end, as far as they go back and forth. I think I want to say maybe it was just a possession each for each team as far as the ending field goal was concerned. But uh, gotta be, I am. You got to be coming away again. This is another. We've had a few of these games that we've talked about. If you're the Packers, you won the game, but you can't really feel good about it that much because of what you allowed and this New England team to even be in the realm of winning this game, taking you to overtime, having all the ability to win this game and steal one from you at home. Like, this could have been a really bad loss for you, and you're lucky you kind of got away with it as you did. And New England, it's like we need to get healthy, obviously, and we gotta hope that we get our running game a little bit more right, but and obviously, hopefully a little bit more pass production. But given the situation they were put in, not surprising that they were where they were. Kind of got to be all right with it as New England. You don't want to take losses, of course. Moral victories only mean so much, and you're a 1-3 team right now. But competitive in a game where I wouldn't have expected it. That's for damn sure.
The kind of moral victory that comes with the promise of potential more victories, right? You see a good game out of Bailey Zappi, you see the run game finally starting to get something going, you go, listen, yeah, we lost, but we did the right things in this game. And if we do the right things against certain teams, those equal wins, right? So I think they can look at the situation and everything and say, we did all the right things to win. And if we do this going forward, we're going to win some more games. So a moral victory, yes, which doesn't count for anything, but more importantly, a step in the right direction.
Oh. I think so. Let's hit on the next game here in a team we've already talked about a decent amount because their Thursday night game. And I think the way that this game played out last weekend might have spelled a little bit of it. This is oddly enough one of their better offensive games, but the Denver Broncos going into Las Vegas to face off against the Raiders, and Raiders able to take this one 32-23. First win of the season for the Raiders. You're getting a not a great game from Carr as far as through the air, but at least Devontae Adams got a decent production out of it. And Josh Jacobs out of the doghouse, 28 carries for 141, two tutties.
Drop him in fantasy.
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. That was some weird, not karma. It's just like cosmic energy around that one. Something had to go. And amazing that you guys goes absolutely off.
I'm done giving you chances, Josh. I took you on a bit of a flyer because you were the last running back who I thought had some potential left on the board, and you've been shit. And James Robinson is just sitting there, and I know I can get a little bit of consistency out of him at least, and then Josh Jacobs does that. Yeah, this was a game of who could coach worse than the other, right? Like, some just baffling coaching decisions. Which led to a fascinating game. Man, two coaches who will not be coaching next season, if I had to guess.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I gotta agree with that one, actually. The weird thing in this one, Daniel Carlson and Brandon McManus both missing extra points in this one. That's a weird.
Yep.
They should have each had one more point. This should have been a 33-24 game if you want to put that in perspective. I don't know what scoregami that could be. If that's probably not one.
No.
But yeah, I mean it's a weird one. I wish I kind of watched this one live to see how some of this stuff broke down. It looks like a lot of just stalled out runs. Daniel Carlson kick us a more or less chip shot field goal in some of these situations. Longest field goal was a 39-yarder. So I mean that kind of tells it right there. Like they had drives, they were able to move the ball a bit. moved the ball obviously on the ground with Jacobs, and a little kind of dink and dunk did just enough and kind of willed this down. Kind of surprising considering, they did put up 32 points, but yeah, just a underwhelming game again. Denver Broncos. Uh, this was their best offensive game, I believe, of the year,
Yes.
and it ends up at a
Far
30.
more than me.
And now, this is when your defense doesn't show up, and you lose this game, 32-23, where a Vegas team that, they ran the ball on you, but they weren't really showing you another dimension outside of that. You should have these games as a good defensive team, and that puts up all right offensive numbers, but then they just play this opposite way, and so Denver's a goddamn mystery as far as it's good at it, kinda, but they've stolen a couple games, but yeah, this could easily be like an 0-4 Denver team, right? They absolutely
Super
stole.
easily.
They stole the Niners game, obviously, and then I'm trying to
They
think of
stole
their.
the they stole the Texans game,
Yeah, that's right.
right?
Yeah, Texas
General
and
Mills
Texans.
does anything in that game, and the Broncos lose the Texans game.
Yeah, so this is Uh, they might be still ahead of this Vegas team technically. I guess they're 2-3 versus the Vegas 1-3 right now, but they look like every bit of the worst team in the AFC West. Keep it going. This one was a interesting one. Again, a defense that was showing up, and then all of a sudden they run into the Kansas City Chiefs, another AFC West team, and they can't do a damn thing. KC going into Tampa Bay, taking down the Bucks 41-31. This game was ugly early and a little bit of a rally back from Tampa Bay, but obviously garbage time touchdown. You can pretty much count that last one from Brady. I was kind of honestly surprised they even put up the 24 points beforehand. This was looking a little worse than that at points, but pretty solid win for the Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the duality of the way teams like the Chiefs and Bills play offense is that sometimes you're going to have games like this where you're going to concede a lot of points, but it's just because the other team's going to be on the field so much, right?
No.
Law of averages sooner or later, especially with a team that still has Tom Brady at quarterback. I know he's not the same guy anymore, but he's still Tom Brady.
385,
right?
3 touchdowns in this game. So,
yeah.
pretty good numbers.
Yeah, law of averages, when you put teams like that on the field, they're going to score. Right, so I don't necessarily look at this and go, oh, the Chiefs' defense. It's just the way the Chiefs play the game is going to put their defense in situations where sometimes they're going to allow points. I think this is kind of what I expected. The Chiefs are just that much better than the Buccaneers right now. The Bucs have been very unimpressive to start this season. The Chiefs, outside of one hiccup, have been very good. They're just better.
Yeah.
That's all this is. They're just better than the Bucs right now.
This one was interesting for to me in a couple regards. It was a little bit of a redemption. I think in the game prior, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had, I think, a rough fumble. Didn't have a good game in general in that last one. And who you brought up, I think, last week, Isaiah Pacheco, ended up having a not bad outing there. I know he had actually, I think, a clutch first down situation for him. Looking decent out there. So you're kind of interesting on that potential 1-2 you have in the backfield for those guys. You're finally getting Smith-Schuster a little bit involved. Weird to see the drop off in production, honestly, that you've had on the Chiefs from Mecole Hardman. I kind of figured that he was like a pretty solid third guy at least for this team, even when he brought Juju in. But kind of not really getting the targets. But I mean, Kelsey, when you got Travis Kelsey, and you're able to mix in Smith-Schuster, Valdez-Scantling, only so many targets to go out because they're playing a decently balanced attack as far as how much they pass the ball and run the ball. Very much the opposite from the Bucs. This team ran the ball 6 times between two backs. Fournette was just nothing going. It was a bad day for him, and then White couldn't get anything done. Yeah, there's a reason why Tom Brady passes the ball 52 times. It was good that he had Evans and Godwin back. He obviously went back to a couple guys he's a little bit more familiar with, but yeah, absolutely just no balance in this attack. And they definitely put up some garbage stats at the end. This wouldn't have looked nearly as good, if not, yeah, for that last drive, basically, and touchdown. But yeah, clearly, like you said, Chiefs looking pretty damn good, and Bucks, um, writing was kind of on the wall. This like you got a team that's gonna make the playoffs. Like they're gonna be there probably, but they're not built to really play against good teams right now.
Nope.
Simple as that.
They are middling. They'll make the playoffs simply because that division is
They'll knock. Yeah, they'll
god
beat bad
awful.
teams. They will beat bad teams for sure. They're good enough to do that. They will struggle against anybody
Yeah,
of the top five,
they're
top six
they're
in
a
the
one and
conference.
done playoff team. Maybe get a win on wild card weekend because, they might not catch a good team in the NFC, but anything beyond that, you're playing a team like the Eagles or something like that. This team doesn't have what it takes to stand up against them. One thing I will say about the Chiefs: more Sky Moore, please. Uh,
Yeah,
he was not seeing the field at all. Saw the field a little bit last game, couple catches, one really nice one. I really liked the route he ran on his second catch, where he ran a bit of a rub route on Kelsey, and both defenders went to Kelsey, so Sky Moore's there wide open. I thought his route running looked really strong. He showed a lot of good. More Sky Moore, right? Like that's why you
right.
drafted him, was to get him on the field. We haven't seen any of them yet. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, like, it's great. Like this is. I think when you think of the Chiefs, obviously you think of like you gotta have some creativity going as far as that offense. Four wide sets, spreading them out. Getting the back there as well, but like really, getting guys out there in space. Yeah, and it seems like Hardman's maybe leaving the window open for a guy like Moore to take advantage of it. Why not? Right?
And the week before, Sky Moore's only on the field for 2 snaps. This week he sees 20, runs some really good routes, does a lot of good things. That's the kind of
That's a
game
great
that,
point.
stats wise may be a little bit inauspicious. You see 2 for 31 and you go, okay, caught a couple balls. But for a rookie who hasn't seen the field much, to gain some confidence, he didn't drop anything, made both of the catches that were thrown to him.
Yep.
Right, that's the kind of thing that gets your coach a little bit of confidence, and you start seeing the field a little bit more. This is a team that doesn't need any more weapons. Valdez Scantling looks like he's fitting in really well with Patrick Mahomes. He seems to be enjoying his time there. As you said, a little bit more of the ball to Juju. Obviously, you have Travis Kelsey, but like, man, you have Sky Moore and McCole Hardman who are both struggling to see the field consistently. That's a scary ass team.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and yeah, this Chiefs team, as tough as I think we kind of felt like the AFC West is going to be. I mean, they're clearly the class of it right now. They've
Yep.
they've definitely pulled ahead.
Yeah, we all got too excited about the shiny new toy syndrome,
Exactly. I
and
mean, yeah, a lot of
the
weapons.
Chiefs are there like, we still have Travis Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes. We don't need shiny new toys. Our toys are fine.
Actually, got rid of toys in Tyreek. It's like it's crazy that that's kind of the feeling. It's
Yo,
like
you
you
guys
lost.
got those PS5s and that's great, but you ever play some of that N64 library? It's
Yeah,
flames.
that's right. Just avoid some of the shooters. I guess they didn't age so well.
Yo, we're out here playing Super Mario 64, baby.
There
Let's
we go. There we
go.
go. Oh man. Um, let's talk about how this game was a little bit of some. This reminds me of Madden '92 because I think the Rams were trash in that game. Uh, Rams going to San Francisco, 9-24. I could talk about a lot of things in this game, clearly, but Here's the one thing I want to point about this. This Rams team put up the 9 points. They had points where they were driving. Everything they did was underneath. Everything was underneath. It got so predictable that Hufanga just absolutely reads a little bubble screen and
that was a disgusting pick six.
Just full read, and he's looking every bit like Troy Polamalu Jr. That you would get from a guy that's been trained by Troy Polamalu, basically. But
See, and I get so much more Ed Reed vibes from him than Polamalu. He's
Ed
not the guy
Reed,
who does
boy.
their throwing down the big hits, but man, he fucking reads the field like nobody's business.
The Bears game, he was throwing down some big hits, but he is a fucking ball hawk. He heat seeks on this shit. It's an incredible closing speed that he has.
I've never seen
tagging the ball.
anybody. Well, not never. We were talking about Edie Reed.
Exactly, but it's that again. It's like
The field like that are so disgusting. He is a safety. They threw a 2-yard slant, and he was like, "I will go run this back for a touchdown, thank you."
we saw glimpses of this with Dante Whitner, but I mean this could even go beyond. But this is the one thing I wanted to point out. Everything that the Rams did on offense in this game was underneath. This is why you get Charvarius Ward.
Oh,
this is why he is such a big pickup for this team and this defense, is that you get to play that way now. They don't hit you over the top so much because you got Charvarius Ward up there, and he's going to eat your number one receiver all day. Eat him alive. I'm on that. It's not Revis Island sort of deal yet. I don't think they're quite scheming it like that. But you have a trust now that you're not going to get blown out over the top. Plus, you do have some great safety play. You have, who's the veteran they have right now? Jimmy Ward is now practicing for this team. So, potentially they're even going to get better on that end. But I'm forgetting his name. It'll come to me right now. Gibson Sr. Veteran safety that they've been able to plug in there. But obviously, Hufanga, Ward, Mosley's able to step in. Like, this defense is playing out of their mind to where this wasn't a great offensive game, obviously. I mean, the Niners only put up 24. This game was close. This is still a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. So the Rams had they had the opportunity to rally back here, but a lot of 3-and-outs for the Niners, and just enough on the offensive side. Got like what you're seeing out of Jeff Wilson. Debo, obviously, just with that incredible play off the screen. Just doing it again. Just like, no. Actually, sorry, not the screen. It was like a 10-yard
It was a little bit.
right?
I think it was a dig. Dig that he ran.
And it looks like a pick. And it's just out of reach of the DB. Debo pulls it down, and it's just shrugging off tackles, people blocking downfield. It was just that's a Devo tutty right there, and what a statement game, kind of as a nice little. They've had some bad ones. Niners have had some bad ones early in the season, but they look like a pretty damn solid team for a 2-2 after this win.
That's a classic Jimmy G game to me. Like, that's the kind of game where if Jimmy G can play like that, this Niners team is going on a bit of a run. Because was it fantastic? Did it blow your mind? No, he's not Mahomes or Allen or something like that. If he can manage a game like that, 16 to 27, 239 and a tutty, no picks. That's the kind of game that you see out of Jimmy G, and you go, we're going to win more games than we lose with that stat line.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need him to go off. He doesn't need to be a 300-yard guy. He doesn't need to be throwing up 5 touchdowns. You run the ball strong. Jeff Wilson having a great game. You keep the passes within, that 10 to 15-yard range. Get the ball in Debo's hands. Let the wide receivers make plays. Keep that ball moving downfield. This defense isn't going to give up a lot.
No.
Right?
And you know what's weird about this game, honestly, is this was actually not a great, in a guy that has been, all-pro player for sure. Mitch Wisnowski did not have a great game in this one. He wasn't punting the ball particularly well. You take a look at these stat lines. Matthew Stafford, 32 of 48 for 254 and a pick. Jimmy Garoppolo, 16 of 27 for 239 and a touchdown. You're literally getting just about the same amount of production on yardage in 21 less attempts on passing. And the touchdown over the interception right there,
Yep.
it's a very, like, possess the ball, don't lose
Yep.
fumbles, don't fumble the ball like they had been. That's why they lost one of their games. It was literally a Jeff Wilson fumble. Keep the ball tight. Jimmy, don't throw a fucking pick. And, like, and defense, keep everything in front of you, and you're just going to feast. You're going to win games like this left and right.
100%. This to me was Rams can't beat the Niners. That's the thing. But more importantly, man, this was a Niners special, right?
At least
this
not in
is
the
the
regular
kind of
season.
game that I think Niners fans get really excited about. I know because I'm talking to a Niners fan who was really excited about it while it was happening. You know, it's not the prettiest. They're not throwing up 40 points like you got Mahomes back there. But you know what? You win games like this. You go on runs like this. If you can shut down teams, you don't need the Chiefs' offense. This is the kind of offense that'll win the Niners a lot of games going forward. Possess the ball, play it smart, don't do anything dumb. Don't run out the back of the end zone, Jimmy. Don't run out the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
Win the ball game.
And this team's, again,
Niners 101.
only getting healthier. They're about to get back Jimmy Ward. They're about to get back Javon Kinlaw. Like, you're talking about front and back, some strong players there. This team's only going to get better on that side of the ball. Dangerous. Absolutely dangerous. And not like Russell Wilson dangerous, like actual dangerous. Not that.
Niners country. Let's ride. I do like I do like the fact that you brought up Charvarius Ward, by the way, because I think he just changes the way that defense runs.
Such a huge sign.
You're right. It's just, and he is one of the few cornerbacks in the league who is an unbelievably good tackler. So when that ball's going in front, he's not bothered by that. I'll just get in front and shut him down.
Yeah. I mean, just left and right on this team. These are guys that will attack the ball carrier. We talked about Hufanga with that. Obviously, the legend that is Fred Warner, who's a better guy that attacks the ball and goes after it, covers as well.
You could argue Dre Greenlaw might be that
guy. Yeah, Greenlaw.
Holy shit, he's everywhere.
You got and that's the thing. Is again, we're talking about some DBs here. That front seven, again, probably your best goddamn front seven in the league right there.
Very few teams who could make a claim to even being in the conversation.
This has always been the thing, though. I mean, and granted, easy to say, impossible to do as far as NFL teams concerned, but you keep this team mostly healthy here. And sheesh, at least on that defensive side of the ball, you just wonder who moves the ball on them.
It would have to be an elite offense, right? Like one of, could they shut down Kansas City like this or something like that? That's the real question with this team, right? And that's
why we had Super Bowl about it.
How far they go.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Is when you get against those elite offenses, can you do the same thing?
Yeah.
Because middling to average to good offenses, not moving the ball against this team. It's when you get up against those truly upper echelon offenses. And I think the only one in the NFC who can really test that is Philadelphia when they're running on all cylinders. Right? That's the only NFC offense that can test this Niners defense. It's if they can get this kind of play out of Jimmy G in the offense, this is a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
I'll be really interested to see what down the line what we get in a game because they do have the Chiefs. That'll be later this month in a few weeks.
Yeah,
we'll have that Chiefs game. Also get Miami in early December. That's gonna be a very interesting game for them.
They
depending on where
still
those teams
don't
are at.
have Mo Hurst and Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw and Jimmy Ward. Holy shit.
It's they have in typical Niners fashion a little dinged up, but if they're able to get healthy and stay healthy, yeah, it's
And
there.
even a guy like Aziz Al-Shaair, if he could get
Yeah,
back healthy, would be a nice
I
addition.
love
Oh,
Alshire actually. He's able to play that like third linebacker.
yeah.
He's not going to get the attention obviously that a Fred Warner is going to get, but he's very impactful when he's playing right.
You
Yeah.
just hope that the Armstead injury is not an IR stint, right? And that would
Right.
that would be the big thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of it's kind of a bank on Kinlaw because you got guys like Givens that have plugged in really well in that interior line as well. So,
Well, to be fair, Amenahu's played pretty well for them when he's had to step in too. So
oh yeah, no, I mean, Amenahu's kind of the opposite right now. He's playing great in that opposite edge of Bosa.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know, man. It's not just that they're strong with who starts. There's a lot of depth there. Like I said, like guys like Amenahu, not playing every play, but when he comes in, he's making an impact. And fuck, man, that defense is so good.
All right, so we talked a lot about the Niners. Anything you want to say about the Rams before we move on to this week?
They stink. Guess
Ah, I
who's
love
not winning the
it.
Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, that's what I like to hear. All right, on to
Man, they
this
miss
week.
Robert Woods.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. Hey, Bobby Trees. All right.
I mean, the decision to replace Robert Woods with Allen Robinson looks terrible.
I mean, if
in
you're not gonna
hindsight.
fucking go to Robinson, I guess he's not really getting separation, but god damn, they got to find a way to get that guy involved.
Yeah.
I don't know. You gotta have somebody else. I mean, they got Higbee, they got Cup, but they need another
Yeah.
wide receiver. Simple
You
as that.
had I wouldn't even say arguably. You had probably the best 1-2 in the NFL last year with Woods and Cup. And boy, it doesn't feel like you have anything close to that this year.
Yeah. But yeah, we shall see as we get into this next week. Obviously, we've already just played that Thursday night game, talked about that a little bit before. But let's get into this week and our picks. Let's jump right into it. First game on the board here. This is another. Where are they playing? Is this one in
London.
Germany? Okay, this is London. I thought there was like a Germany game or something that was gonna happen.
I don't think that's till next year. I
Oh,
think
okay.
next year is when they start the Germany games.
Never mind. So we got a 6:30 Pacific kickoff for this one, but early Sunday morning. Kind of an interesting game. 2 3-1 teams, if you could believe it. The New York Giants going into, in quotes, Green Bay to face off against the Packers. Packers getting a -8 in this game.
Hate this one.
This one is interesting. If you take a look at that injury report, it is quite vast for that Giants team. You got injuries at wideout, defensive end,
Not
linebacker,
not random dudes either.
defensive back. Yeah, exactly. You got starters. You got
Right. It's the real impact dudes who are hurt for them.
if you
It's
thought they were leaning on quads last week, every bit as much this upcoming week. But -8 for a Packers team that is not effective offensively, no matter what their health has been. It has been quite surprising in games where you feel like they even should have ran away with it. Kind of underwhelming offensive performances, barely winning that game against New England. Who do you got in this -8 spread game? This is a tough one.
The injuries are just too much for me.
I'm right. Yeah. We might
It's
be
just
right there with it. If this was any healthier of a Giants team, why
if
wouldn't
they
you take
had
them with the -8? But
a wide receiver, I might pick them. They're
hard.
going to be running out David Stills and Richie James, and that is every wide receiver that's on their depth chart who is healthy.
They're so beat up. It's crazy. Yeah.
Daniel Jones gets hurt. Guess what? They don't have Tyrod Taylor. Who's going to be their third quarterback? I don't know. Somebody from the practice squad, I'd imagine. They're going to bring a backup.
They got to.
Um, like Aziz Ojulari is a death blow to that defense. Like that is your friggin' pass rush. Done. Right? Like you're missing Cordero Float, who again is somebody who you might look at and not really notice at first, and then you realize that they're also already missing Rodarius Williams and Aaron Robinson on IR. So they're already kind of thin at corner. And now Cordero Float's gone, which means you're likely looking at Justin Lane getting a lot of snaps, who's kind of been burnt every time he's been on the field ever. Ugh.
The only saving grace you got here, though, is it's like the Giants are going to be trying to run the ball, and the Packers can't really stop the run either.
That is very true.
They are not a good run.
The Giants are going to get a lot of yards on the ground in this one, unless quads breaks too. I mean, then they're really fucked.
You got to hope they're able to mix in, your Maparita a little bit. Hopefully, get a spell a little bit. Give some. Not as many reps. I don't know, man. Like this is.
They're gonna run quads until he breaks.
Probably, but it's like I took Green Bay in this one. Everything as far as like how the teams have played, and if this was any healthier of a Giants team, I'd have to take the Giants at the spread. But it's like I just don't see them really putting up offense. I gotta figure you're getting enough out of Rodgers. And a really good run offense on the other side to where they're putting up enough points. So I got Green Bay. You got Green Bay?
Yeah. It's just there's too much here injury-wise for the Giants. I'm with you. If you give them one of those three receivers that are out, and you give them Cordero Float so that their cornerback situation doesn't look so thin. Now I'm starting to question it a little bit, but there's just too much. Too much. Also, teams favored by 7 or more points in London are 7-0 against the spread.
Wow.
So, I mean, it tends to be a place where the blowouts happen.
Interesting.
This feels like it might be one of them.
Very interesting.
That was a little stat I came across today. I was like, oh, okay, well, that did make this a little bit easier, because I was still struggling with it. Even with all those injuries, I was like, but the Packers, man, they're not going to win by 8.
Let's go into another giant spread. This one's the biggest one of the weekend, and there's a lot of big ones this weekend. Pittsburgh going into Buffalo. Buffalo minus 14 at home. 3-1 Bills against the 1-3 Steelers. But this is now the Kenny Pickett-led Steelers. What are you thinking for this one?
So this one I struggled with a little bit too. Because I do think the Steelers' offense is going to play much better under Kenny Pickett. That being said, that Bills' offense can fucking fly, right? And a 14-point spread is a lot, but it's also 34-17 is a 14-point spread there, right? 34-20 is a 14-point spread there. It's a lot, but it also feels like this is the kind of offense that does it. I look for Kenny Pickett to play a pretty good game, but I just think the Bills probably do enough to win this thing by enough. It'll be close. It's the kind of spread that makes me go, I don't know. But is the Bills putting up 40 out of the realm of possibility here? If they do, are the Steelers really going to put up 27? I don't think so. I'll go with the Bills. It's what I have written down. I don't love it because I do think Kenny Pickett's going to play well. I just think the Bills' offense is going to put up just a little bit too much on this one.
And yeah, I don't see that out of the realm of possibility. Minus 14 is too big of a spread for me.
That's fair.
I have the Steelers. Just the realm of possibility for a game to still be completely in Buffalo's hands, but not be 14 points is just
Yeah.
all. It's just all too much of a chance, especially at the end of games. You get a garbage drive in there. This could be a Steelers team that is down 20 points at the very toward the very end of the game, and they dink one in for an extra touchdown there, make it a 13-point game. All of a sudden that gets busted. It's kind of interesting though. Buffalo did not play a good first half for the most part in their last game.
Nope.
They got really beat up by that Ravens team. A not great as far as yards against Steelers team, but a middling defensive team as far as points are against for the Steelers defense. A Steelers team that's going to want to run the ball as well, especially even though I like Kenny Pickett over Trubisky for sure. This is not really a pass first team though. This is a
Nope.
team that's going to try to establish the run. If they can somehow find the way to keep this game close and keep their running game in it, I could see them keeping this game close for the long run. It's really this first half. This first half could go completely out of their way. If they're down 17-0 or whatever in the first half, it's looking really bad. This is probably going to go your way, and it's going to be a 20-plus point win potentially, even for the Buffalo Bills. If the Steelers can find the secret sauce of what the Ravens just did to the Bills, keep this kind of close, keep their running game in and on the offensive side to allow Pickett, some play action and just a little bit more comfort in the pocket there, I could see them keeping it with this within 14. That's basically kind of my
Yeah.
logic in it.
No, and I completely get that. I was right there too, because I watched that second half and I went, I don't think he made a bad throw in that second half and ended up with 3 picks. That is harsh.
Yeah.
Right? He missed 3 passes. 2 of them hit off of his receiver's hands and ended up in the hands of an opponent, and one of them was a Hail Mary. And I look at that and I go, I always liked him. I always liked him coming in. I thought he had NFL. Like, I said it when we were talking about our draft video. I thought Kenny Pickett was a guy who, day one, is an NFL starter. I don't think his ceiling is terribly higher than that. I don't think he's got Mahomes' future. But this is a guy who's already got all the tools to play in the NFL and play well at an NFL level. And I think about that, and I think about this Bills team, and I go, he's not going to make mistakes, which is what this Bills defense usually thrives on. When teams don't make mistakes, they can tend to move the ball against them. I worry that the Steelers defense that just gave up 29 points to Cleveland a couple weeks ago is going to give up more than that to Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, exactly. They did just lose a game against the Jets, so
Yeah.
makes some sense there for sure. Let's keep moving. This one's another interesting one, a closer spread, but really a tale of two really different teams. I feel the L.A. Chargers going into Cleveland to play the Browns. Browns getting plus 2.5 at home. On the Chargers side, you have an injured and out Keenan Allen, Joshua Palmer, who is like probably their third, fourth, right, as far as wideouts are concerned. Dustin Hopkins, their kicker, questionable, and I know he was I think he got injured in the last game, so they might have had to go to like emergency at that point. Kind of interesting in that standpoint. You have a questionable Clowney on the other side for Cleveland. But I don't know. This one, I was a little surprised at first that it was so close on the spreads. But, I mean, honestly, Chargers have had some really ugly games this season. And Jacoby Brissett is treading water, basically. He's doing all right and making sure to hand that ball off to Nick Chubb. So I don't know. What do you have on this one?
I like the Chargers. I think that spread's way too close. I think if you started to put it closer to the 5-6 point range, I'd be like, yeah, really close on it. 2.5. No, the Chargers will win this game outright. And if I believe that, I believe it's going to be by more than a field goal, obviously, or at the very least a field goal. So
Okay.
I'll take the Chargers on that one. I don't love the injuries, but I still think there's too much there. They uh they signed Tyler Bertolet to kick for them. Uh, who is somebody I do know a little bit about because he played on the Manziel Texas A&M team, and if you remember when Johnny Football was going strong at Texas A&M, they were on every fucking week. And most recently played in the CFL for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Um, is a guy with a big leg but a little bit of accuracy problem. So, you got the 50, 55, 60 yarders. They're gonna give it a go if he's playing, because he can hit the piss out of the ball. Has a tendency to miss from 30 to 45, and you'll go, how did he miss that? Uh, that's your field goal scouting update. Uh, Still, Chargers have too much in this game.
I Yeah, I got Chargers as well. Yeah, too close of a spread. I feel like Chargers are a better team. Um, but this is just like this is a crazy game as far as obviously this is a run first versus the pass first team as far as the offenses are concerned. And honestly, that Cleveland defense has been playing much better defense than what the Chargers has been showing as far as your stats are concerned across the board. Outside of some sacks, but you don't even have Bosa there anymore, so you're not probably getting that kind of production anyways out of the sacks. But I don't know. I think you finally got a decent game out of Eckler last game.
I think that's the important thing here is they started to get Eckler going, and it was a thing we talked about it a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Austin Eckler. He's not a guy who needs to run the ball 40, 50 times because he is so versatile in the pass game. You can get him involved on those short routes, and they work the same way as a run does, right? 13 for 60 with 6 for 82 or whatever the heck it was. Boom, that's your perfect Austin Eckler game right there, right? And I think that's where I really look at this because missing Keenan Allen's going to hurt. But if you can use Austin Eckler like that, they'll have enough to get this job done.
Yeah, I gotta feel that way. I mean, like three of the Cleveland Brown games this season, incredibly close. We're talking about a win against Carolina, a loss against the Jets, and a win against Atlanta. And it's just like when you're playing those teams that
Lost
close,
against Atlanta.
yeah, you won against Pittsburgh like decently soundly, but Chargers should be the better team on paper here. Um, and yeah, I don't know. We'll see with Clowney being on an injured ankle. Um, how effective is he going to be? I think that's the one thing that's definitely hurt this team is Herbert hasn't been super comfortable in the back in the pocket. So if you're able to kind of ease that up, by not having to play full strength Clowney, then I just there's still that feeling that the Chargers are a better team here. So going with the Chargers. We'll keep it moving right down the line here into an NFC North showdown. The 2-2 Chicago Bears, and I'm still so fucking surprised they're 2-2. Going into Minnesota to face off against the Vikings. Vikings getting -7.5 at home here. Who you got?
Vikings all day. All day. The Charger or the Bears stink.
Offensively,
offensively, seven and
yeah.
a half. I know it sounds like a lot for a Vikings team that we did talk about as kind of being milquetoast, a little bit average. But this Bears team, man, if they put up 12 points in a game, it's a bloody miracle. Like, I can count on the Vikings to get 20, and that gives me 7.5 probably. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the we got some pretty low averages. They're just a very one-sided team. Again, this is a team that's going to run the ball, and they can run the ball decently effectively. They'll deal with Fields a little bit, but they believe in Herbert. They believe in their backs on that. As much as I don't think there's any lack in belief of Madison and Cook on the other side for the Vikings, but they're clearly able to pass the ball to a pretty better efficiency
Yeah.
than what the Bears can do. And I think when you just like when you're so one sided, it's the same thing that I have about picking any kind of Browns team right now. It's like
Yeah.
that team is just they're just gonna run the ball and that's all they got, and it'd be crazy. It's just hard to imagine that this Minnesota team is gonna not be looking out for that. They haven't been a particularly great defense themselves as far as against the run, but um, in this
The Bears have
situation, what are you playing
yeah.
against? You're playing the
Yeah.
run.
The Bears have played against teams though that don't have particularly great defenses, and they make them look like the fucking prime Bears.
Yeah.
Like,
Is that Mike
fuck.
Singletary? What?
How are you making the Packers defense look like they're the 1985 Bears? Like, what are we doing?
Interesting in this one though, I will say, is that the uh, you obviously like. I think he had that one really off game, but you got like a Justin Jefferson out there for the Vikings, who's been an absolute stud, obviously. Uh, yeah,
My money,
just
best wide receiver in the NFL.
too much big pop potential from that. You got Thielen, obviously, and then I love the 1-2 that they have in Cook and Madison as far as their
Yeah.
backs are concerned. Just too much potential good from this Vikings team to go
And
against them,
like,
even at a 7.5, which is a good. That's a pretty big spread right there,
yeah.
but I don't have any confidence in the Bears to be able to actually score anything. So
And you look beyond Jefferson and Thielen, they got some guys who can go off in the right situations, right? Guys like Irv Smith, KJ Osborne, right? Like these are guys who can get catches and get yards beyond those two, right? Like that offensively they have all the weapons they need except for maybe you could argue the quarterback. But Kirk Cousins at his worst could put up 20 points against the Bears. And again, that probably wins you a game by 7.5 against this Bears team.
think so. And yeah, that it could be a defensive struggle, and that spread might be just too big for that to actually be like a realistic separation. But I don't feel like you could have a good defense, and I feel like the Bears do obviously have a good defense, but it's only going to keep you around for so long. You just get worn out basically, and you can only stop them for so long.
And let's be real. In the modern NFL, you give up 23 points. You played a pretty good defensive game for the most part, right? That's solid. In the Bears case, that's losing by double digits.
Potentially.
More often than not, actually. I think they've only scored 20 points in a game once this year,
Yeah.
and they've only scored more than 10 points twice.
Well, let's go to a team that's certainly letting up more and obviously putting up more. This is actually the exact. It's a crazy disparity on this one as far as
A
offense versus
reverse
defensive team.
Bears.
The Detroit Lions, also of the NFC North, going into New England to face against the Patriots. A couple one-win teams here, a couple last in the division teams here, but we got the Jared Goff.
11 tutties for Goff.
I mean,
11.
11 and 4 so far. Pretty good clip. Unfortunately, it was a team that also just gave up 48 points to the Seattle Seahawks. This one's an interesting one as they have this at a -3 for New England, despite starting your boy. Um, forget his
See it.
forget his
Bailey
name.
Zappi.
Thank you, Zappy. There we go.
Shouts out Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, also Houston Baptist of the FCS, I believe. This is the kind of game where 99 times out of 100, I'd be hammering the Detroit Lions. However, DeAndre Swift, not playing. If you were to list the Detroit Lions' optimal top five receivers, it would be Amon-Ra St. Brown, likely out. Jamison Williams, out. DJ Chark, out. Josh Reynolds, likely out. Quintez Cephas, out. You can maybe argue Khalif Raymond in there between him and Quintez Cephas. That's the whole argument. This team makes the friggin' Giants injury situation look like Christmas. This is also a team, by the way, that's missing Charles Harris, who is their starting left edge rusher, who would not normally be their starting left edge rusher, but Romeo Okwara is also out. they are they have Trey Walker on IR. They have Onwu Onwuzurike, one of those names, on IR. This is a team that's missing fucking everyone right now. The Lions are going to find a way to put up points in spite of all of this because they do. But that defense is so bad, and the Patriots defense is not nearly as bad as the Seahawks defense. I don't expect the Lions to be able to put 45 in this game. And I do actually like Bailey Zappi a little bit in this game to have a decent showing here. I like the Patriots in this one. To win what will probably be a fairly high scoring game in spite of itself.
Oh, I
Um,
think so. Okay.
yeah, I think this ends up being somewhere on the 30 to 27, 33 to 30 spectrum of games. Um, Too many injuries for me to like the Lions in this one.
Yeah, like, I mean, both are dinged up. Obviously, it's a lot worse for the
Yeah.
Lions. But yeah, both have a pretty massive out list as far as their players coming up. I worry about this is like when you have such a crazy shift, like you are just we obviously see the super defensive teams that don't really have the offense. We've just gone through a couple of them. The crazy offensive team that doesn't have a defense is really not something you see too often.
Nope.
It's much more rare. I wonder about the longevity. I mean, Jared Goff has been thought of as Jared Goff for a reason. Like, as far as do you really want Jared Goff as your starting quarterback? Did you really want to pay Jared Goff all this money? Obviously, their production on offense speaks to that, especially with as limited of a weapon selection as he has. You still have Hawkinson in this game, who was one of your only guys you went to in this last one. I was back and forth in this actually quite a bit
I did flip flop on this one a couple times.
because I can't believe that Zappy is like really. He had some impressive numbers. The touchdown numbers he brought up earlier. Did not realize that. Like, all right, getting over what he's doing, but -3. It's like for as wild of a game as it could be, as far as the score and the offensive potential and that sort of thing, and the lack of defense that you see from that Detroit side. You have an all right defense on the New England side, so it's probably enough to keep that within range, especially because you don't have really weapons out there that could probably scheme up. You're probably going to be seeing nice little like over the middle coverages against Hawkinson, all that sort of thing. Yeah, I gotta lean New England just a bit, just
Healthy
because
Lions win this game quite easily, but
I think so. Yeah.
this Lions team that they're going to be trotting out there is not a healthy Lions team. It's, you know, even if St. Brown and Chark do play, how much are they really gonna? Right, like are these? They're not going to be anywhere close to 100, right? Like, I don't know. It feels like they're just way too banged up.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one for them. I mean, if they're able to somehow like find the depth, find some guys to go to in all of this, like hats off, because I don't really see it. But I mean,
I
it's not
do
like this is an
kind of like
impressive.
Khalif Raymond. He's done some good things for him.
I mean, it's not like this is
Uh,
an impressive,
yeah.
Pats team either. So
Nope.
might have it. Might have a chance. Um, let's keep it moving. Keep it going. Very, very interesting one down in New Orleans for this one. We got the 2-2 Seattle Seahawks going in to face off against the 1-3 New Orleans Saints. I believe we're gonna have Jameis Winston back in this game, if I'm not
That
mistaken.
is the news.
But we have a somewhat surprising Geno Smith led
That
Seahawks
is
squad.
not the news. Jameis Winston is listed as doubtful. Andy Dalton is expected to start.
Okay, I was not seeing that on the injury list, but there we go. Okay, so potentially Andy Dalton. I mean, again, Andy Dalton, uh, surprisingly well, almost led that Saints team to a tie uh, and a potential win in that game in London last weekend. -5 that New Orleans is going to be getting for this one, though, at home. Who do you got?
Why is New Orleans getting -5 in this one? What about
Seattle.
the Saints team makes you think -5? Seattle's actually like, hold on. Like, Gino's been doing the stuff, right? Like,
I think Geno's been better, absolutely, than expected, but you're talking about a
yeah,
almost if
no.
there wasn't a Detroit Lions, the worst defense in the league. Like
Um,
in a lot of categories.
yeah, I mentioned it when we were talking about it earlier, right? He's played two fairly tough defenses in the Broncos and the Niners, and both of them
Yeah.
made him look bang average at best. Bang average at best. Um, the question is, without Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara will be back.
Yes.
Does this Saints team with Andy Dalton at quarterback have enough to win this game by 5.5? No. No, of course they don't. Give me the Seahawks. It's going to be a close game either way. Might be a little bit ugly because the Saints defense is good, and like we said, Geno Smith doesn't look great in front of good defenses. But what? The Seahawks are going to need to put up 30 to 31 to win this game by 5.5? They're not doing that. I
I
don't think.
so here's my thought. I think this is going to be a little bit tighter of a game for sure. Um, I don't see both these teams putting anything much more than like around the 20s.
I agree
Honestly,
with that.
this is a 45 over under. I would take the under on this one actually.
I would agree with that as well.
This is exactly the point in time. So so everybody did like the comparison. There's been I've seen on Twitter and stuff like that. There's like been nothing but comparisons like Geno Smith versus Russell Wilson, and Geno Smith having the better numbers and that sort of thing. This defense for Seattle is really bad. It's not anywhere good. Like
I would
Detroit's
agree with that
bad.
as well.
It's a really bad defense. Andy Dalton almost somehow got a win against the Minnesota Vikings last week. Now, that's a stretch because it was almost a tie and then the potential for the overtime to go into
Yeah,
a win. So it's kind of a double jump there, but you see what I'm saying.
I got you.
Saints defense that I think we both feel is good. Like,
It's a good defense.
it's
It's not an
not
elite defense, but it's a
stellar.
good
I
defense.
think they had a better defense, honestly, last year, oddly enough, but they
Yes.
also, yeah. I picked this thinking that Jameis was starting. So you already know where I'm going with it.
You had the Saints.
I still have the Saints with Andy Dalton
Red
starting.
Rocket,
Give
baby.
me New Orleans. I believe it. I think Seattle's not. It's a faulty 2-2 team
Yeah,
for
it's a
sure.
lot of it's a lot of facade and trick mirrors and trick wire, and they're being held up by threads. But yeah, I don't think the Saints are going to be able to put up enough points to get that kind of a distance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that all the potential for that to be the case as well. I would say. But let's keep it moving through the picks. Very nice. Let's see. Very, very interesting one. This is another one with quite the injury list, at least on one side of the game. An AFC East matchup. Miami going into New York to face off against the Jets. Jets are going to be +3 here at home. Miami 3-1 in the season, 2-2 for the Jets after that comeback win last weekend for them. Obviously, heard about Zach Wilson coming back for the Jets. He will be starting there. Tua will be out for the Dolphins, so I believe there'll be Teddy Two
Bridge,
Gloves going to
Teddy
be going
Two.
out there for Miami. Who you got?
This pick, when I wrote it down, I had to stop for a second and go, "Am I stupid?" And the answer is yeah, maybe. I just don't think the Dolphins get over the whole Tua controversy thing this week. I feel like this is the game that trips them. We talk about it a lot in NCAA. I talked about it this week on the blog, sportscliches.ca/blog. Um, with USC this week, who's playing Washington State, who's an okay team. They're not an outstanding team. Um, but they have Utah the week after, which could be a game that decides the Pac-12, right? And the kind of game where you maybe get lost in the woods, forget that you're playing a game right now. That team keeps it close, and now all of a sudden they got a bit of momentum and it's a game. I could see that being this game. I could see everything that's happened around the Dolphins just bringing a little bit of a cloud over them. It's a Jets team that's not great, but they're not awful this year by any means. They'll stick around and hang if you let them. I think the Jets steal this one. It just feels like that. Give me the Jets on this one, not only to cover, but to win this outright. I just, it feels like the right time for the Jets to pick up a win that they shouldn't otherwise get.
This one is actually the one that I had. I didn't have marked because I'm just. I don't know. Yeah, it's just like I think Miami in general should be the better team. Even if you're going with Teddy Bridgewater out there,
100%.
there's been enough. They've shown enough. A lot of on their injury report, even though it's kind of like initially shocking, it's a lot of questionables out there. So I imagine, you know,
A good
your
chunk of them end
your
up
Tyreek
playing.
Hill and your Jalen Waddle is going to be playing in this game, even though they're listed questionable. Xavier Howard, I gotta imagine, will be out there. Maybe more limited, given.
Yeah.
I I think it's enough of a. You had a nice little rally back win for the Jets last weekend. Miami just losing their first game, and yeah, just the everything that they had. Ah, man, this is a tough one. Especially at this spread, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and I've been going with the New York teams.
You have been going with the New York teams.
We went
That
against
has
that.
been your modus operandi.
We went against that though. We already went Green Bay. Yeah, I gotta go Miami here. I
Honestly, can't blame you. This is one of those gut feeling picks for me more than anything else.
yeah.
Of like, I've seen this game happen too often. The really talented team has something weird happen around them, or a game in the future that they're looking forward to, or something along those lines. They get lost in the woods for a half. Bad team sticks around, keeps it close. Now all of a sudden they got confidence, and the big boy team is thinking what's going on, and they panic and they start rushing things. And before you know it, Teddy Two Gloves is throwing 4 picks, and the Jets are stealing a win they shouldn't otherwise have.
Could be. Yeah, absolutely. It's a tough one. It's a tough toss up that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. But yeah, given the situation where they are right now for this game to
Yeah.
happen, it's absolutely the possibility that the Jets can take it.
This game happens next week, and this is the spread. Dolphins 100% of the time. Just that it's happening now.
We shall see. We shall see. Very interested in this one coming up. Atlanta going into Tampa Bay, face off against the Bucks. Bucks getting -10 at home. Tell me how the Atlanta Falcons are going to win this game. Because I hear it.
Uh,
I hear it already.
I will not tell you how the Atlanta Falcons will win this game.
Oh,
I will tell you how they will cover this spread.
Cover
though.
the spread. All right, all right.
Um, Atlanta and Tampa Bay always ends up playing out the exact same goddamn way, which is Tampa Bay dominates this game but can never get separation. It's been the same story every time these two teams have played since they got Tom Brady. It doesn't change here. The Bucks probably win this game, but somehow the Falcons keep it close. They score some. Tyler Allgeier, I think, is going to have a decent game running the ball. I think they're going to find some success there. The spread's too big. Spread's too big for a game between these two teams. Falcons stay within 10 easily. I think this is a 5, 6, 7 point win for the Bucks where they dominated the whole way down and didn't. It looks better than it was, but the Falcons always tend to hang in these games.
And you know better than I do as far as how these games go down. It is pretty surprising. You take a look in the past 3 seasons. I mean, 5-1 for the Bucks. Tom Brady led and that sort of thing, and some of those things would pop if we haven't already gotten through the core of this season, and we kind of know how these teams have played out. This thing that worries me though, and it just hit right at the worst time for these guys. And we talked about, and we know that it's not like Kyle Pitts has been seeing too many targets anyways, but he's out.
Anyways.
But the big one, obviously. And I know you like the backup that they got. But Cordero Patterson.
That hurts.
It is a big hit on the IR right now.
That is their whole offense. That hurts.
Against an already really good Buccaneers team that also just not too long ago. I mean, I guess they had him last week too. But they have both there. They have Mike Evans. They got Godwin. Even Julio, he's questionable into this one, so he might get involved. Giant spread of -10. I just don't know where the Falcons find the offense here. I oddly enough have Tampa Bay on this one.
I don't think that's odd at all. I think conventional wisdom should tell you Tampa Bay wins this.
Oh, wins it, but -10 is
decent chunk.
Yeah,
conventional wisdom would say this is a 34-14 kind of ass whooping that the Falcons are about to get. I don't know. Falcons are the only team undefeated against the spread this year, by the way. I have that one written down here to make me feel better about it. It's just there's something about this matchup. It's like any time that you see the Niners and Rams playing each other on the schedule. I said it last week. The Niners always beat the Rams. I should have just gone with the Niners. Right? There's something about this game on the schedule. It doesn't matter when they play. The Bucks are going to win and be by far the better team, but never get separation.
There we go. Yeah, I can see it going. I mean, -10. That's a huge fucking spread. Understandable on that, and it's the reason why I picked against Buffalo. It's like -14.
Yeah.
Once you get those double digit spreads, it's like can you really?
Yeah.
Convince yourself. And absolutely.
Yeah.
But they know what to do, and that's the bookmakers. And they made this one very spicy. Another one where that injury list is vast. Tennessee going into Washington. Titans against the Commies. Commies getting +2 here at home. You're talking about some pretty notable names out, really on both sides. I mean, you got a guy like Dotson out, even for the Commanders. I mean, they haven't had much. Monty Hooker, Bud Dupree on the other side. Uh, Tennessee getting a pretty close spread here, oddly enough, in this one. Who do you got?
Titans. I took the commies last week in the this is the game where Carson Wentz plays a team who nobody's paying attention to Carson Wentz in and goes God mode. I'm done doing that. Carson Wentz just sucks. That's what I have learned. He's just bad.
Yeah.
Tannehill is also bad. The difference is Tannehill has Derrick Henry and Carson Wentz does not.
Yeah, I mean, I like the backs for Washington, but it's obviously they're not going to be able to really thrive in this offense either. So as much as I might like Antonio Gibson and even McKissick, it's not like they're going to be doing too much.
No, and Gibson and McKissick combined don't equal Derrick Henry, right? Like
a healthy Derrick Henry for sure. Yeah,
if they're all playing at their best, Derrick Henry is equal to more than McKissick and Gibson.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm done banking on because there used to be a time where with Carson Wentz in the middle of the season against nobody teams put up 5 touchdowns, throw for 400 yards, and you'd be like, "Fucking hell, this is the Carson Wentz I'm talking about."
Yeah.
Then he'd play like shit in good games. Now he just plays like shit all the time, so it makes it easier.
Yeah, I mean, and like I think their last, you're facing it off against division opponents, and you put up 10 and 8 points in your last 2 games. I don't really have any confidence in that offense to be able to move it for Washington. Tennessee, for as bad as they looked in a couple games, losing to Giants in a close one, but then absolutely getting dusted by Buffalo. Have gotten a couple wins against a Vegas and Indianapolis team, which, I think are a little better, maybe, hopefully, that their records say. So yeah, I like Titans. They got a little bit more behind them, and should win this game by more than 2 points. So give me Tennessee on that one. Speaking of Tennessee and an AFC South team, let's move on to the next one. AFC matchup in this one, and these would be 2 bottom feeders, but now you got a Jacksonville team that's a little bit more surprising. They end up having a -7 spread here at home as the Jags host the Texans. This is going to be a very, very spicy one as far as I feel like this spread is concerned. Like, I couldn't tell you last time Jacksonville was ever favored by fucking touchdown in a game. So this is a pretty giant spread for them. Tough one to pick, I gotta be honest. But I'll tell you right now, as much as I kind of like some things that the Texans are doing, it's still a no-win team for a reason. They even lose games where they really should have won. I like the Jags.
Okay, let me see if I can get you to change your mind. Over the past 5 seasons, since Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been the favorites 4 times. 3 of those 4 games were against the Houston Texans. They have lost all of them outright.
The trend. Oh. That's a good one.
Did I change your mind?
No.
No. Okay, good. Neither did I change mine.
I thought the Houston chick was coming out. Very nice.
No. Trevor Lawrence, when he is getting hit a lot and when he's under a lot of pressure, does not play well. The Houston Texans get no quarterback pressure. When he stays upright, Trevor Lawrence plays really well. Jacksonville will win this laughing. I don't love the Texans at all. I don't think they can do anything in this game much for offense. Like, I don't expect them to put up anywhere near 20 20, maybe like ceiling at 20. If that's the case, I still like the Jags to put up 30 plus.
I think they should be, you know, against this Houston team. I just feel like it's going to be a win out as far as talent is concerned. What is interesting is actually Houston does do pretty decently. They have 11 sacks on the year, seventh best in the league. So they actually are able to get some pressure. Oddly enough,
Oh,
but I feel like you're talking about a Jags team that's surprisingly enough sixth best scoring offense in the league, fifth best scoring defense in the league. It's hard to really ignore those numbers. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's all about the points. I agree. Got to keep them upright as far as Jacksonville is concerned, but I, I I think a lot of those sacks for Houston probably came in that Indy game.
I was
Gotta
gonna say,
imagine.
hold on, they got freaking 6 sacks against Indy. That doesn't
So,
count.
well, I mean, you gotta give them some of the sacks. Like it's not like they didn't play the game, so like yeah, it is what it is. This also, this is all. Or sorry, but this is a Jags team that Houston went and tied it 20-20 against Indy. The next week, Jacksonville beat that Indy team 24-0.
Yes,
It's just hard to ignore the results. There's just too much going for Jacksonville. They're a hot pick, obviously, right now. A team that has been an absolute basement dweller is finally starting to do something. And Houston is just the basement dweller to just stayed in the basement, it looks like so far. So give me the Jags. Even at that high spread, -7. Give it to me.
yeah.
We'll keep it moving. And you already know where I'm going with this one. And I think a lot of people are going with this one based on how the
You
other
already
teams
know where
play.
I'm going with this one.
San Francisco going to Carolina to play the Panthers. 2-2 Niners, 1-3 Panthers. Panthers getting +6.5 at home. Give me the Niners.
Don't give me the Bears. The Panthers might very well put up negative points. They might find a way to actually take away points from the Carolina Panthers in this game.
I feel
Yeah.
bad for Christian McCaffrey right now. What the hell is that guy gonna do? He's gonna be running for his life.
You know what the fucking sad thing about Christian McCaffrey is? Uh, his last 3 games, he has 100+ yards from scrimmage. And everybody's still bitching about Christian McCaffrey not doing enough. What the fuck more can he do? It's not his fault they don't have a quarterback.
Yeah. Oddly enough, one thing I will say for this game is that you have a Panthers team that the losses, it's been ugly. They really didn't look good in that last game. They've kept these games kind of close, losses to Cleveland and New York, not obviously like stellar teams that pop off, although New York, 3-1 team, I guess.
I guess.
I guess. They've had these weird close ones, and Niners have lost 2 games against teams they should not have lost to. This should potentially be a 4-0 Niners team that will have lost 11-10 against Denver and 19-10 against Chicago. So the stinker's out there. Like this Niners team has underperformed severely in a couple of these games. But obviously, you got to feel it's a little bit of an upswing coming off that primetime, that Monday night game against their rival right there in the Rams. Panthers looked bad in their game against the Cardinals. Can't see any reason why they wouldn't play worse against the Niners than they would the Cardinals. So 6.5 isn't nearly enough points as far as the spread. Yeah, give me the Niners on that.
You bring up the 2 losses, and I think it's fair. I do think those losses are victim of circumstance, though. They lost 19-10 to the Bears in a bowl of soup with a second-year quarterback, right? Who was his first time entering the season as the starter. That one, toss it aside, it doesn't really count. Then that guy gets hurt. So now you got a guy who hasn't practiced with the team at all this year as your starting quarterback against Denver. I think you can also take that one and throw it off to the side. This Niners team isn't those teams.
Right. I think the Chicago one, what was telling about that is that the game that should have been absolutely in their hand by the end of the first half. And they kept that window way too open. Chicago rallied back, and by it wasn't absolutely terrible until I think midway through that third quarter into the fourth. Then it was absolutely unplayable for the offense. Basically, the idea being you should have put the foot down early to get a good lead and not be the team that's behind when the shit comes down all of a sudden in the third and fourth quarter, basically.
It wasn't absolutely terrible in the air until the third or fourth quarter. I'd like to remind you they were shoveling standing water off of the field
Oh, yeah.
before the start of the game.
Yeah, no, granted, but those are both teams are having to play through that, and it was a offensive. I don't think the rain was necessarily the worst part. There was some balls coming off the hands, that sort of thing. Yeah, you could attribute that to rain, but I think some just a complete lack of offensive consistency that you're seeing, and it wasn't terribly surprising with Lance kind of beginning the game. His season out and in that game, that sort of thing. But it was the worst kind of timing because they allowed that window open, and then one crazy across the field like huck up to Dante Pettis, and all of a sudden they're getting a free touchdown to a guy that didn't have anybody like 25 yards around him. Like that shit happened.
No, I get that, but I do think there's extenuating circumstances on both of their losses that I think you can realistically take them and put them off to the side as like they happened and there's things that we can learn from them that were issues, but on a whole, I don't think they're reflective of the team.
Yeah. Let's keep moving because this is a very interesting one. As we just talked about that Rams team that kind of got skunked by the Niners. They're going to be hosting the Cooper Rush-led Dallas Cowboys, coming in at 3-1. The Rams getting -5.5 at home. I know what I got. What do you got?
I'm curious about what you got for that. I think my pick is quite obvious. I bigged up Cooper Rush before this.
Yes.
I talked about how I think the Rams stink. I think that Dallas defensive line has been really good at getting pressure on quarterbacks this year. And they keep it up in this one. They're going to get to Stafford. They're going to make life hard for him. I think Cooper Rush does what he's done his entire time as a starter, which is play the game responsibly, right? He's not going to give you a ton of opportunities to pick him off and gain momentum. That's just not the way he plays the game. He's going to make a couple big plays, not a ton of them. He's not going to, again, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he'll make a couple big plays and he's not going to give you the opportunity to strike back with mistakes. I think that's what we've seen out of Cooper Rush. Every time he started, that's what we're going to see again. No. I like the Cowboys in this one. I don't get the Rams being favorites here. I really don't. If you've watched both these teams recently, I think the Cowboys should definitely be the team that you lean towards, but
yeah. I would say so this is an interesting one, and I think for me it's I thought of these teams first when they're healthy at like full capacity, which obviously Dallas hasn't been since week 1.
Yes.
With their backup quarterback. So I almost kind of like took Dak out of it. I'm like, what's a healthy Dallas Cowboys team led by Cooper Rush versus the healthy Rams team? But obviously, you take a look, and neither of these teams are in that situation. The ones that set off a little worry for me, you got questionable on Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb. I imagine both those guys are going to be running or playing come game time. That's my feeling. Tell me otherwise if not the case. But
so I think the interesting thing with the Tony Pollard one that makes me think he's going to be playing is his listing of questionable after Friday's practice wasn't because of the ankle injury he apparently suffered in that last game. It was because of an illness. Okay. I think if that's the case, Tony Pollard's playing, right? You get him on 50 cc's of soup and he's good to go. It also sounds like CeeDee Lamb's good to go. Everything that it sounds like is that, he did practice on Friday. It was a little bit limited, but I think that's more just, let's not do anything to make it worse before the game.
Yeah.
You know, if you're moving fine, let's get you moving a little bit, but let's not go too crazy out here. Um, so I think both those guys are good, and if that's the case, even more so. But I
Yeah.
think this is the kind of game in particular against this defense where you can maybe get Ezekiel Elliott running again, right?
Yeah.
And I know I've said it before, and I still believe that if this Cowboys team is going to go far, Tony Pollard needs to be your number one guy. But the Rams defense really does not like playing against strong running backs.
Yeah.
They tend to fold a little bit in the middle if a running back can hit them hard. Zeke can hit you hard, right? We've always talked about it with Zeke. He might not be the kind of guy anymore who can break off the 20, 30-yard runs, but he's always going to fall forward. Um, this might be the kind of game where Zeke and Pollard can just really open up this game. And again, I just don't see Cooper Rush making the mistakes that uh, the Rams are going to need to keep this close. I
Yeah.
nearly called them St. Louis. Makes me sad.
Right. So here's where I was going with this. So that was the first side. That's the Dallas side. You're kind of worried about those injuries. Here's the main thing, though. You take a look on that Rams side. They've already been dinged up. They got a couple linemen, offensive linemen, already on the IR. They now have added two more additional linemen that are out for this upcoming game. They already had to shuffle that son of a bitch up
Yep.
for the Niners game. And you saw the results of that. That's a team that put up 9 points and they were lucky to do so. This is a Dallas Cowboys team that is the second leader in sacks, is the third best scoring defense in the league. I don't see, and fifth best passing defense specifically. There's already a Rams team that doesn't run the ball effectively.
Yeah.
Give me like 3 sacks from Michael Parsons, and give me the
Yeah.
fucking Dallas Cowboys to absolutely run over the Rams in this game.
Yeah.
I think Cooper Rush could play just fine. I don't really have any crazy expectations, low or high, for him. I think he'll do just fine. I don't see how the hell the Rams move the ball against this defense of the Cowboys. So give me Dallas all day in this one.
And everything you said. Everything you said. That's how I feel too. Like the Rams, what we're looking at. I think a high end game for this Rams team, given all the injuries on that front and the way they've played recently, is like 17 points. Right? Like I don't see a ton of potential for a big game, and I trust Cooper Rush to just do enough.
Yeah.
Right? Like he reminds me not of an individual player, but again, I wrote the college football blog earlier today, so I'm thinking about it. The Kansas Jayhawks this year, uh, they're kind of a weird team where they've played everybody close, but they always win, right? And it doesn't matter if they're playing a high-scoring offensive game, low-scoring defensive game. They come out and win, right? It's always close, but they always win. Cooper Rush kind of does that for me with the Cowboys. You know, the numbers won't pop. They'll never be like, holy shit, Cooper. But he wins. He knows he always does enough to win. And I think he can do that in this game as well.
I think so. I got to agree with that. And yeah, we'll see. Yeah, with the, you know, what the hell are they going to do against that pass rush? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I think Parsons with a few sacks this game. Honestly, that's my feel about it. Let's keep moving. We got the last 3 games to pick right here. Let's get to it. Philly going into Arizona. The Eagles against the Cardinals. The Birds. Um, Eagles are, or sorry, the Cardinals are going to get a +5 here at home. Eagles only undefeated team in the league right now. I'll just tell you right now, I don't see any reason to go against it. Give me the Eagles.
I found one stat that was like, oh, okay, so this is an easy pick. The Eagles allowed the lowest yards per pass, 4.75. The Cardinals allowed the most yards per pass at almost 6. Uh, Additionally, the Eagles get the most yards per pass at 8.79. The Cardinals get the 25th ranked yards per pass at just 6.93.
Yeah.
All this matchup is bad for the Cardinals. Everything here is not good.
Yeah.
Um uh hey, good news. New Hopkins is back in a couple weeks. That'll help. Not back this game. Eagles win.
Yeah. Yeah. It just feels like too many good things are going their way, and Arizona's somehow pulled out 2-2 record. But yeah, I mean, they laid a stinker against Vegas last weekend. I see them as clearly almost as bad. Like, not as bad. That's going too harsh. They're not as bad as the Seahawks, even though they share a record. But damn if they haven't made the argument that they're close. In my opinion.
Oh, they might be as bad as the Seahawks.
In my opinion, it's close, but they shouldn't be, but they are.
But
Um,
they might be.
yeah, they might be. Um, let's go to another one. This is intriguing division matchup here. This might be the game, or this will be your Sunday evening game. So, national television, prime time. The Bengals going into Baltimore to face off against the Ravens. Both teams set at 2-2 on the season. Baltimore getting -3.5 at home here. Um, Take a look at, I noticed a couple things on the injury report. You got some questionables there for the Bengals. Hayden Hurst, T. Higgins, probably your most notables on that. On the other side for the Ravens, Rashad Bateman going to be out for the Ravens. Justin Houston, linebacker, is going to be out for the Ravens as well. And Ben Cleveland, I believe, who is a starter on that offensive line, going to be out. That being said, give me the Bengals.
100% agree on the Bengals pick there. Um, I think this is a Bengals team that has started to get it figured out, especially on that offensive line. They've looked stellar the last couple games. They've kept Burrow clean. I think that offensive line is starting to gel. They're starting to figure out, okay, where are we going on our shifts? Who's going where in case of double teams? What are we doing? Right? We mentioned it early in the season when they were struggling. There's a lot of really good players on that offensive line that just don't seem to know each other well enough yet. Feels like they're starting to get that timing. Um, Last week's game feels like a real backbreaker for the Ravens, and I don't know. I don't know if they come in with the same motivation, right? I think there might be a couple bad misses. Obviously, you mentioned Rashad Bateman being the massive one because this isn't a team with a lot of depth at wide receiver. So a lot of this game now falls on Devin Duvernay. Who I love Devin Duvernay. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah,
you talk about the Bengals,
that's
and we've
tough.
talked about it before. Deep, deep at that wide receiver position.
Here's the thing that's also kind of interesting, and maybe I was wrong when I took a glance at this before, but I was taking a look at these teams, and I believe Duvernay is their primary returner as well on special
Yeah.
teams. See,
Yes,
you
he is.
can't do that. You can't have your only wide receiver option as your returner as well. So either they got to figure out something with another returner that I feel would be
Yeah,
the
I will
case.
say I
Just too much.
wouldn't be surprised if James Prochet takes a lot of the return duties uh in this game in particular. Um he's a pretty decent punt returner, was a pretty good punt and kick returner at SMU. So I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe have Prochet take some of that to try to take some of the heat off of Duvernay because I agree with you. You can't have your number one receiver be your kick returner. It's
Yeah, it's
it,
just dangerous.
it's a dangerous game you're playing. Um, Even still, I think the Bengals have kind of gotten it figured out. They've gotten over the Super Bowl hangover. That offensive line has gotten together. They're starting to keep Burrow upright. You still have that three-headed monster at wide receiver who any one of them can just go off on you. they just got a little bit too much for the Ravens in this game, I think. A Ravens defense in particular that has struggled against the pass. And I don't know, like, especially if Marcus Peters can't go, like,
Yeah.
who's stopping Jamar Chase?
Yeah. I think, yeah, just some bad injuries at some bad times.
Yeah.
And, yeah, a Bengals team that it feels like is starting to figure this out. So,
Yeah.
got to go with that, especially with that point spread. Like, this could be a close game, and the 3 points could still, like, make the difference on that one. So,
Also, Hayden Hurst starting to break out a little bit in this Bengals offense. They're starting to figure out how to use the big body in the red zone a little bit. I think he had 7 targets
yeah.
over the last 2 weeks, had a touchdown last week. They're starting to figure out how to incorporate Hayden Hurst, who could be a
Yeah,
really nice piece for them.
hopefully that injury isn't anything too significant. I mean, I know he's listed as questionable, so we will see with that. But yeah, I would imagine is going to be playing in this game.
Yeah.
So, and they need it because they have literally like 4 tight ends on their injury list, so they need
Yeah.
they need anybody to play, please.
Yes. Give us a tight end.
Let's go last one of the week, your Monday Night Football game, an AFC West classic. The Las Vegas Raiders going into KC to face off against the Chiefs. Chiefs getting -7 here at home. If you take a look at the money line bets, and oh my God, I've never seen so much red. People really love the Chiefs in this one. Raiders did come off getting their first win of the season against the Broncos. Josh Jacobs actually getting some carries for once. And honestly, a very interesting game. This is the this week's least injured 2 injured teams right here. They're actually not too bad. Justin Herron, unfortunately, torn ACL in that last game for the Raiders, so he'll be out for quite a bit of time. But everybody else more or less healthy on this one. A giant spread though here. Another big old spread of -7. For me, I think with these games, you got to throw out some of the conventional wisdom. I think everything kind of tells you that the Chiefs are a super loaded offense that, they could put up 40 against good defensive teams like the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Don't do it, Tap.
Give me the Raiders.
No!
Give me the Raiders. Yep.
Okay,
Vegas, baby. Let's go.
Hold on, before you mark it down. Patrick Mahomes, in his career against the Raiders, 7-1, 22 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Here's the thing. This Raiders team, they went 0-3 or off the bat. Just finally picked up their first win.
Are playing without a coach.
That is also a
to overcome.
Quite a feat. They lost their games by 5 points, 6 points, 2 points. In the games they've lost, they've kept it within the 7. They have not faced the Kansas City Chiefs yet. I will give it that. I will give it that. This is also a Chiefs team that somehow lost the Indianapolis Colts, and they only put up 17 points there. Not saying like that's a consistent thing by any means, but weird things happen when the Raiders play the Chiefs, or the Raiders play anybody in the AFC West. Granted, what your statistic tells you right there is Patrick Mahomes going to go off. But weird shit happens all the time around this, all the time with this Raiders team. We're getting close to Halloween.
The Chiefs haven't lost on Monday night at home since 2004.
Yeah.
Mahomes against Vegas, 7-1 outright, 7-1 against the spread. He loves playing Las Vegas.
Break the trend, 7-2. That's still a pretty good trend right there. It just could happen every now and then. It's not invulnerable. It's not impenetrable. He has a 1 next to that 7 in the 8.
Oh,
it could happen.
You're right.
You could have a 2 next to the 7 and the 9 potentially. There's the chance.
You're
right. Saying there's a chance, and you know what? I think honestly, this is a Raiders team that they are clearly, like, they need some better coaching for sure.
That's
I think though, I don't know, man. I think that this is going. They're gonna be a problem team every game they play this season. I think they're a problem team, and it might be not. It might not always result in wins, but they're gonna be annoying, and they're gonna stick in games, and they're gonna potentially steal and get like a late touchdown that makes it a closer game than it ever should have been. Why not? Give me the
that
Raiders.
like it. You've convinced me. You make a solid argument. Give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, convinced you, but you still take the other team. Yes, and
You
then
make a solid argument. Not solid enough for me to ignore all this other argument, but it's
yes,
a solid one.
yes. All
The
right.
Chiefs just bitch slap the Raiders every time they play. It's not changing here.
We shall see. So we are. We'll go through it. Actually, let me go through. So last week, didn't bring this up. Last week,
You went off.
your boy went 10-3-2 on the week. Craig went 6-7-2, so kept it almost at the 500 right there. Overall, 33-25-2 on the season. Craig 28-30-2 on the season himself. And in this week, we are split on 4 different games. Pittsburgh at Buffalo, minus 14-point spread. I got Pittsburgh. Craig got Buffalo. Seattle at New Orleans, -5 for the home team. I have New Orleans. Craig has Seattle. Miami at New York, the Jets. Jets are +3 at home. I got the Dolphins. Craig has the Jets. And the last game of the week, Vegas going into Kansas City, -7 on the spread at home for Kansas City. Give me the Raiders. Craig got the Chiefs. We shall see as the games play out. But definitely not as many splits as we had last week. We had a historic week last week for Sports Clichés where we picked on 9 different games differently. A little bit more in agreement this week. More in line with our usual spreads. But I digress. That's going to do it for the picks for this week. Yeah, some fat spreads in there. And we'll move it on. I think we got some playoff baseball starting today, didn't we?
Yeah, I got the jersey going
There we
on.
go. All right. Craig, you want to give us a little breakdown, perhaps, on some of the stuff you were able to check out today? Unfortunately, those Blue Jays. Yeah, game 1.
Yeah. Game one, but in a 3-game series, game one is massive because now you gotta
Yes.
win 2 in a row. Um, Listen, the Jays have struggled against Luis Castillo every time they've played him. Luis Castillo dominated the AL East this year. Um, Not being able to get to Luis Castillo is not terribly surprising. I think you got to just reset tomorrow. Playing Robbie Ray, Robbie Ray. Uh, I I do think this is a series that goes 3. I think the Jays find a way to get through Robbie Ray tomorrow, and you go to Game 3, which will likely be Logan Gilbert versus Ross Stripling, which is a fascinating little pitching matchup. Um, I will start off like the Mariners Jays game. There's just not much to talk about outside of that. The Mets getting shit stomped by the Padres was shocking. The Mets came into the playoffs as probably the best team that didn't win a division. Throwing Max Scherzer on the hill in the playoffs, that was an automatic dub, and they got shit stomped. Scherzer got lit the hell up by the Padres.
Yeah.
Um, I think it
4
was
homers. 4
I think
fucking homers, dude. Like,
I think
sheesh.
a 3-run shot by Jurickson Profar, a solo shot by Machado, a 2-runner by Josh Bell, and a solo shot by Trent Grisham. Like, just absolutely lighting up Scherzer. Foolish to count the Mets out of this one. That bullpen is still ridiculous. Uh, but man, they're gonna have to come back with something in Game 2. I don't know. like obviously you Darvish pitched well for the Padres. I don't know who their probable is for game two. Um, if I look here, it, I don't know if they're throwing out Musgrove or Snell. Um, but the Padres pitching staff is strong. Like there's some strength on that pitching staff.
Yeah.
So it'd be tough. It'd be a tough pill to swallow for the Mets to friggin' win. What did they end up winning? 98 games, 101 games, and
Yeah.
lose in the wild card round. Really hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. What's kind
They'd
of
have,
interesting, what I saw that was kind of interesting about this one was, obviously, I think the home runs obviously converting into base runners, turning into some extra runs for you, and just contribution on that front. Both teams, I mean, you're talking 8 hits to 7 hits as far as
yeah.
Padres is. So it's not like the Padres were like, putting up double digit hits or anything like that. Efficient with what they got. 8 men left on base for the Mets. So I mean, yeah, no no surprise they only put up 1 run in that one. Like they were able to get a little bit going and like in scattered places, but it never came together for them. And
Same thing with the Jays and Mariners
Pods,
game.
yeah,
Both teams had 7 hits in that one. Then the Jays left all 7 guys on board. It's gonna kill you. The Phillies and Cardinals was the craziest game of the day.
right.
Cardinals up 2-0 going into the ninth. They
Six.
send in
Six.
Ryan Helsey, who has been automatic for them this year.
Yeah.
And boy, did he lose the strike zone quick. He gave up 1 hit to get 4 earned runs against. Ryan Helsey couldn't throw, like, it was the craziest thing. Palante didn't help him any coming in relief. But man,
Yeah.
it was just shocking to watch Helsey blow that lead with such, like, just surgical precision.
It's
Um,
what's crazy about it to me is, oh man, like the way it happened though. That first run coming in on a hit by pitch,
yep.
that's gotta shake you to your core, right? As a pitcher, like how do you? And then yeah, all it takes is just a little single, and then all of a sudden you're down a run in a game where you were up 2, and it should have just been right there in your hands. That's crushing.
It was actually a very similar start to the Blue Jays Mariners game that cost the Blue Jays. First batter was Julio Rodriguez. Manoah hits him. Julio ends up going up to second on a ground out, I think, and then a single scores him. And then the next batter up is Cal Raleigh, hits a 2-run home run. Game's over at that point. And then the Guardians beating the Rays 2-1. I coming into the playoffs, I thought the Cleveland Guardians were the weakest team in the playoffs. They're there by virtue of playing in a division that sucks. Get a win. And listen, the Guardians pitch well. They cannot hit, but they pitch well. If you can't put up a couple runs against them, you're going to struggle. And Shane Bieber, obviously playing a great game. Emmanuel Clase doing what he's done all year. In my opinion, probably the reliever of the year, Emmanuel Clase. Absolutely automatic for them this year. Continues to do it in that one. Good win for the Guardians. It'll be interesting to see if they can do that to the Rays one more time, because I don't. That's right about the Guardians' limit for runs they can score in a game. They're not gonna get more than 2 or 3. So you're gonna need to do that to the Rays every time. I don't think you can. That Rays offense it's got some pop to it, right? It's easy to look at the 3 hits they got in this game and go, well, of course you do that again, but you're not going to hold Wander Franco and Yandy Diaz and Arozarena and G-Man Choi, Manny Margot. Those are all guys who didn't have hits in this game. They're going to get theirs, right? So I that's a win that the Guardians get purely based on Shane Bieber and Emmanuel Clase. It's not, I think, going to be indicative of what I imagine will be a 3-game series win for the Rays, but you never know. I think that's kind of how the Guardians need to win games in this playoffs. Even if they do win this series, ain't no way in hell that team is getting past the Yankees. Right. holding the Rays lineup to one run and holding the Yankees lineup to one run is two massively different feats. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
as an aside, I kind of like Yankees Braves as the World Series matchup, and it makes me throw up a little bit in my mouth saying it. Um, but I think the Astros are the better team than the Yankees, but I think the Yankees kind of luck out in the way the playoff system breaks down. So because the Yankees are the 2 seed, they play the winner of the Rays Guardians series, which hypothetically should be the stronger seeded team, being that the Guardians are the 3 seed. However, the Guardians are the 3 seed by winning their otherwise very weak division, and the Rays are the worst wildcard team, right? So the way that this breaks down, more often than not, you'll want to be the 1 seed and face one guaranteed one of the 2 wildcard teams rather than a division winner. But this year you got a division winner who's quite bad. So I think it breaks down nicely for the Yankees. I think the Mariners or Jays are gonna give the Astros a tough series, and I think because of that, the Yankees come into that CS a little bit fresher. Take them, and I just like the Braves. I really like this Braves team. I think to come back from all the injuries they've gone through and all the shit they've gone through to win that division,
yeah.
I think they end up there, and then probably the Yankees win the World Series and everybody cries a little bit, right?
I mean, yeah, I couldn't speak too much as far as to the obviously they've been in the story just because of Judge and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's
Fuck
very
Aaron Judge for his hitting home runs and cutting into my college football games for it.
yeah, that's probably the most absurd thing that came out of that. Yeah, the way that they cut into stuff. It'll be a yeah. I think the Padres that Padres Mets game that was eye popping. Obviously, that Phillies Cardinals game that you brought up, those are the ones that really caught my eye. But yeah, we'll see as the playoffs go further down. We'll cover a bit of it ourselves. Only other thing I really want to hit into, and I just want to touch upon this real quick because it did pop up, and it is a team that's near and dear to me. Draymond Green punching the shit out of Jordan Poole in practice for the Warriors.
Shit.
If you haven't seen it yet, yeah, you can just look that up, and it's pretty easy to see. The only thing I wanted to bring up about this is it's very, very, very interesting because obviously we live in a little bit more of the social media age now, that sort of thing. But it's not like this was just like an open practice, something like that. The thing that strikes me is that this was somebody within the Warriors organization that was filming a practice, within the organization. The only reason that they're even in there. This isn't by far the first time a teammate has hit another teammate. But this is one of the few times where we actually have like some absolute solid video evidence of the thing happening, right? I guess Jordan Poole is kind of notorious for being a little bit of an instigator for the team ever since he was rookie. It made me think of like some of the other stuff, like especially as a Warriors fan, like it made me think of, yo, what if we actually had video evidence of like Spreewell choking out PJ Carlesimo way back in the day? Like that's as crazy as this kind of is. Like you hear about it and there's scuffs. Jordan punched Kerr, the head coach of the Warriors back in the day. That's a known story. Yeah. Not the first person Jordan probably punched on the court. Nope. Plenty. It happens. Like even though these guys are teammates, shit arises in practice, especially in this kind of like preseason training camp mode. But it's just like that is, I don't know. That's just a funny leak, and you wonder, I don't know how much like that guy got paid, and if it was worth it at the end. It was just surprising to me in that regard. As far as a teammate punching another teammate, actually not that crazy surprising. It's kind of crazy how it was a little Superman punch from Draymond. Like, he gets a little
Jordan
step in.
Poole got fucking
Oh, he crumpled.
slept.
Yeah, he got
Did you
crumpled.
see the way his legs went out from underneath him? He was unconscious.
But you're not expecting to take a Superman punch, I guess, at that point. But hey, I mean, at this point now, it's we'll see as they go further along. There's still going to be teammates. I can't imagine it's going to be a thing to where like people. I think I saw people were like they can't be on the team anymore. No, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Like this isn't the first time, so that's going to be fine. But it's just yeah, in and otherwise, you're not going to be hearing too much about the NBA right now, except for maybe some off-season moves and people coming back from injury. But a little surprise story there out of my Golden State Warriors.
I know what else I wanted to talk about. The NHL started today.
Oh yes,
We had the start of the NHL regular season while the preseason is still going on. Because, the NHL is fucking weird.
yeah,
The Sharks and Predators were
that's right.
playing in a... Where was it? Prague, I believe, in the Czech
Yeah,
Republic.
that's right. Yeah,
Um, Predators getting off to a nice start to their season with a 4-1 win. Don't think it's terribly surprising. I think everybody kind of knows that the Sharks are not going to be great this year.
good. They had a great preseason, honestly. But yeah, I mean, realistic expectations through the regular season, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah. If they want to, they'll get hella stuff for Thomas Hurdle though.
They
That
didn't.
that
They didn't do that. Like the whole thought was that it was going to happen. Like, and they're just going to kind of let him go last season, and instead
Yeah,
they re-signed him for big old deals. So I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, but it's a very friendly deal too. Like, if the Sharks go real south, like they very well could, uh, Thomas Hurdle's deal is nice. It's not expensive, boy. It is definitely one of those deals that will net you a lot for
Right.
Thomas Hurdle.
Well,
Um, I don't think there's any rush to do it. So if you don't get the right deal, you don't pull the trigger on it. You keep him around. He seems like the kind of guy who doesn't cause issue or anything like that. Um, but yeah, I think this could be the start of a pretty rough season. They go at it again tomorrow in Prague, I believe. Um, that time, I think today the Predators were the quote unquote home team. I think tomorrow the Sharks are the quote unquote home team.
yeah.
And then the official season starts on the 11th with a spicy Rangers and Lightning game.
Good old NHL getting in the swing. It's already that time of the year.
It
October's upon
is.
us. So yeah, we're gonna see it. We're gonna get that playoff baseball, and yeah, obviously starting to get into the meat of the season for the NFL. Yeah, a lot of stuff to look forward to. A lot of stuff we'll be covering here on Sports Cliches. Anything else you want to hit on before we end the evening?
That was it for me.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it right there. Thank you all for joining us very much for another episode of Sports Cliches. Do appreciate you if you have been stopping by. Be sure to catch us on every Friday. We're going to try to get around the same time, about a 6 p.m. Pacific start. Catch that here on twitch.tv/tapatioj. That's TAPATIOJ. Or take a look on the YouTubes there to be able to check us out. Look
When I
up
get the
these
chance to upload them.
Sports Cliche podcast. We'll get the next couple episodes uploaded to that. And be sure, if you are interested at all in some college football action, you're checking out our boy Craig's blog on that, getting you caught up with his picks and the latest in the college football world. Be sure you check that out as well. That's sportscliches.ca. Sportscliches.ca. That's about
Slash blog.
/blog. So yeah, go check that out. And we will catch you next time for another episode of Sports Cliches. See you on the other side. Have a great evening.
Deuces.